The Sibylline Oracles, Book 1, from the first book. Beginning from the first generation of articulate men down to the last, I will prophesy all in turn such things as were before, as are, and as will come upon the world through the impiety of men. First, God bids me tell truly how the world came to be. But you, devious mortals, so that you may never neglect my commands, attentively make known the Most High King. It was He who created the whole world, saying, "Let it come to be." And it came to be. For he established the earth, draping it around with Tartarus, and he himself gave sweet light. He elevated heaven and stretched out the gleaming sea, and he crowned the vault of heaven amply with bright shining stars, and decorated the earth with plants. He mixed the sea with rivers, pouring them in, and with the air he mingled fragrances and dewy clouds. He placed another species, fish, in the seas, and gave birds to the winds, to the woods, also shaggy wild beasts and creeping serpents on the earth, and all things which now are seen. He himself made these things with a word, and all came to be swiftly and truly, for he is self-begotten. Looking down from heaven, under him the world has been brought to completion. And then later he again fashioned an animate object, making a copy from his own image. A youthful man, beautiful, wonderful. He bade him live in an ambrosial garden, so that he might be concerned with beautiful works. But he, being alone in the luxuriant plantation of the garden, desired conversation, and prayed to behold another form like his own. God himself, indeed, took a bone from his flank and made Eve, a wonderful, maidenly spouse, whom he gave to this man to live with him in the garden. And he, when he saw her, was suddenly greatly amazed in spirit, rejoicing. Such a corresponding copy did he see. And they conversed with wise words, which flowed spontaneously, for God had taken care of everything. For they neither covered their minds with licentiousness nor felt shame, but were far removed from all evil hearts, and they walked like wild beasts with uncovered limbs. To these did God then address commands, and instruct them not to touch the tree. But a very horrible snake craftily deceived them to go to the fate of death, and receive knowledge of good and evil. But the woman first became a betrayer to him. She gave and persuaded him to sin in his ignorance. He was persuaded by the woman's words, forgot about his immortal creator, and neglected clear commands, and therefore, instead of good, they received evil, and as they had done. And then they sowed the leaves of the sweet fig tree, and made clothes, and put them on each other. They concealed their plans, because shame had come upon them. And Immortal became angry with them, and expelled them from the place of immortals, for it had been decreed that they remain a mortal place, since they had not kept the command of the great immortal God, and attended to it. But they, immediately going out on the fruitful earth, wept with tears and groans, and then the immortal God himself spoke to them for the better. Increase, multiply, and work on the earth with skill, so that by sweat you may have your fill of food. Thus he spoke. But he made the serpent, cause of the deceit, press the earth with belly and flank. Having bitterly driven him out, he aroused a dire enmity between them. The one guards his head to save it, the other his heel. For death is at hand in the proximity of men, and malignant, poisonous snakes. And then the race multiplied, as the universal ruler himself commanded, and innumerable peoples grew, one after another. They constructed all sorts of houses, and also made cities and walls, well and with understanding. And to these he granted a lengthy day for a very lovely life. For they did not die worn out with troubles, but as if overcome by sleep. Blessed were the great-hearted mortals whom the immortal Saviour King, God, loved. But they also sinned, smitten with folly, for they shamelessly ridiculed their fathers and dishonored their mothers, plotters against their brothers, and they did not know their familiar friends. They were polluted, sated with the blood of people, and they made wars. Upon them came a final ruin cast from heaven, which removed them, terrible ones from life. But Hades received them. They called it Hades, since Adam first went there, having tasted death, and earth covered him, and therefore all men who are born on earth are said to go to the house of Hades. But all these, even when they went to Hades, had honor, since they were the first race. But when it had received these, he fashioned again another very diverse second race from the most righteous men who were left. These were concerned with fair deeds, noble pursuits, proud honor, and shrewd wisdom. They practiced skills of all kinds, discovering inventions by their needs. One discovered how to till the earth with plows, another carpentry, another was concerned with sailing, another astronomy and divination by birds, another medicine, again another magic. Different ones devised that which they were each concerned, enterprising watchers, who received this appellation because they had a sleepless mind in their heart and an insatiable personality. They were mighty of great form, but nevertheless they went under the dread house of Tartarus, guarded by unbreakable bonds, to make retribution, to Gehenna of terrible, raging, undying fire. And after these again a third race, mighty in spirit, of overbearing, terrible men appeared, who performed many evils amongst themselves. Wars, slaughters, battles, destroyed these continually, men of proud heart. And after these things, in succession came another race of men, late of fulfillment, the youngest, bloodthirsty, indiscriminate. In the fourth generation they shed much blood, neither fearing God nor respecting men, for a raging wrath and grievous impiety was indeed inflicted on them. Wars and slaughters and battles cast some to the netherworld, though they were miserable, impious men. Others the heavenly God himself later removed from this world in wrath, draping them around with great Tartarus under the base of the earth. Again he made afterwards another far inferior race of men, for whom thereafter immortal God fashioned no good, since they suffered many evils. For they were insolent, much more than those giants, crooked ones, abominably pouring forth slander. Noah alone among all was most upright and true, a most trustworthy man, concerned for noble deeds. To him God himself spoke as follows from heaven: Noah, embolden yourself and proclaim repentance to all the peoples, so that all may be saved. But if they do not heed, since they have a shameless spirit, I will destroy the entire race with great floods of water. But I bid you to construct quickly an imperishable wooden house, flourishing with unthirsting roots. I will place a mind in your breast and crafty skill, and will put measures in your lap. I will take care of everything, so that you and as many as live with you will be saved. I am the one who is. But you consider in your heart, I am robed with heaven, draped around with sea. The earth is the support of my feet. Around my body is poured the air. The entire chorus of stars revolves around me. I have 9 letters. I am of 4 syllables. Consider me. The first 3 have 2 letters each. The last has the rest, and 5 are consonants. The entire number is twice 8, plus 300, 3 tens, and 7. If you know who I am, you will not be uninitiated in my wisdom. Thus he spoke, but an immeasurable fear seized the man. Such a thing did he hear, and then, having craftily devised all in turn, he entreated the peoples and began to speak in words like these. Men, sated with faithlessness, smitten with a great madness, what you did will not escape the notice of God, for he knows all things. The immortal Saviour, who oversees everything, who commands me to announce to you so that you may not be destroyed by your hearts. Be sober, cut off evils, and stop fighting violently with each other, having a bloodthirsty heart, drenching much earth with human blood. Mortals, stand in awe of the exceedingly great, fearless, heavenly Creator, imperishable God, who inhabits the vaults of heaven, and entreat him, all of you, for he is good, for life, cities, and the whole world, 4-footed animals and birds, so that he will be gracious to all. For the time will come when the whole immense world of men, perishing by waters, will wail with a dread refrain. And suddenly you will find the air in confusion, and the wrath of the great God will come upon you from heaven. It will truly come to pass that the immortal Saviour will cast forth upon men, unless you propitiate God and repent, as from now and no longer anyone do anything ill-tempered or evil, lawlessly against one another, but be guarded in holy life. And when they heard him, they sneered at him, each one calling him demented, a man gone mad. And then Noah cried out a refrain. O very wretched, evil-hearted, fickle men, abandoning modesty, desiring shamelessness, tyrants in fickleness, and violent sinners, liars, sated with faithlessness, evildoers, truthful in nothing, adulterers, ingenious at pouring out slander, not fearing the anger of the Most High God, you who are preserved till the 5th generation to make retribution, you do not bewail each other, cruel ones, but laugh. You will laugh with a bitter smile when this comes to pass. I say, the terrible and strange water of God. Whenever the abominable race of Riei, a perennial shoot on the earth, flourishing with an unthirsting roots, disappears, root and all in a single night, and the earth-shaking land quaker will scatter cities, complete with their inhabitants and the hiding places of the earth, and will undo walls, then also the entire world of innumerable men will die. But as for me, how much will I lament? How much will I weep in my wooden house? How many tears will I mingle with the waves? For if this water commanded by God comes on earth, will swim, mountains will swim, even the sky will swim, all will be water, all things will perish in the water, winds will stop, and there will be a second age. Oh, Phrygia, you will emerge first from the surface of the waters. You first will nourish another generation of men as it begins again. You will be nurse for all. But when he had spoken these things in vain to a lawless generation, the Most High appeared. He again cried out and spoke. Now the time is at hand, Noah, to say all in turn, to do to the immense world everything which on that day I promised and indicated to you, as much as the myriads evils generation did previously, on account of a faithless people. But quickly go on board with your sons and wife and daughters-in-law. Call as many as I bid you to address, species of 4-footed animals and serpents and birds. I will subsequently put in the breasts of as many as I apportion life to go willingly. And thus he spoke. But the man went, cried out loudly, and spoke then, his spouse and sons and daughter-in-law enter the wooden house. But then the other creatures went in turn, as many as God wished to save. But when the joining bolt was about the shutter, fitted to a side in the polished wall, then indeed the plan of the heavenly God was accomplished. He threw clouds together and hid the brightly gleaming disk, having covered the moon together with the stars and the crown of heaven all around. He thundered loudly, a terror to mortals, sending out hurricanes. All the storm winds were gathered together, and all the springs of waters were released as the great cataracts were opened from heaven. And from the recesses of the earth and the endless abyss, measureless waters appeared, and the entire immense earth was covered. The wondrous house itself swam on the flood. Battered by many raging waves and swimming under the impact of the winds, it surged terribly. The keel cut immense foam as the rushing waters were moved. But when God had deluged the entire world with rains, then Noah considered that he might look on the counsel of the immortal and see the Hades of Nereus. He quickly opened the shutter from the polished wall, fixed as it was skillfully with fastenings opposite each other. Beholding the great mass of limitless waters, Noah was struck with terror to see with his eyes only death on all sides. And he quivered greatly at heart. And then the air drew back a little, since it had labored many days, drenching the whole world, and showed them the great vault of heaven at evening, as it were bloodied, greenish yellow, and the brightly gleaming disk hard pressed. Noah barely maintained his courage, and then taking one dove aside, he cast it out, so that he might know in his heart whether firm land had yet appeared. But she, laboring with her wings, having flown all over, returned again, for the water was not receding, but rather it had filled everything. But he waited again some days and sent a dove once more, so that he might know if the great waters had ceased. But she, flying, winged her way and went on the land. Having rested herself a little on the damp land, she returned to Noah again, bringing an olive twig, a great sign of her message. Courage and great joy seized them all, because they were hoping to see land. And then afterwards he sent out quickly another black-winged bird. But this one, trusting in his wings, flew prudently, and when he came to land, he stayed there. And Noah knew the land was near, closer by. But when the heavenly craft had swum to and fro on the dashing waves by the billows of the sea, it was fastened on a small beach and made fast. There is a certain tall, lofty mountain on the dark mainland of Phrygia. It is called Ararat. When all were about to be saved on it, thereupon there was a great heartfelt longing. There the springs of the great river Marseille had sprung up. In this place the ark remained on lofty summits, when the water had subsided. And then again from heaven the wondrous voice of the great God cried out as follows: Noah, trustworthy, righteous man who has been preserved, go forth boldly with your sons and wife and 3 daughters-in-law, and fill the whole earth, increasing and multiplying, dealing justly with each other, to generations of generations, until the whole race of men comes to trial, when there will be judgment for all. Thus the heavenly voice spoke. But Noah took courage and jumped to the land from the ark, and his sons with him, and his wife and his daughters-in-law, and serpents and birds, the species of 4-footed animals, and all the other creatures together, went out of the wooden house into one place. And then Noah, most righteous of men, came out 8th, having fulfilled 41 dawns on the waters, through the counsel of the great God. Then again a new generation of life dawned, the first golden, excellent one, which is the 6th, since the time of the first formed man. Its name is heavenly. For God will take care of everything. Oh, the first race of the sixth generation. Ah, great joy in which I later shared. And when I escaped dire destruction, having been much buffeted by waves, suffering terrible things with my husband and brothers-in-law and father-in-law and mother-in-law and fellow brides, I will tell exactly. There will be a multicolored flower on the fig tree. Time will be at its midpoint. There will be a royal scepter-bearing rule. For 3 great spirited kings, most righteous men, will destroy the fates and will rule for a period of many years, administering justice to men. They will be concerned with labor and fair deeds. The earth will rejoice, sprouting with many spontaneous fruits, overladen with offspring. Those who give nourishment will be ageless, always free from hard, raging diseases. They will die smitten by sleep, and will go away to Acheron in the halls of Hades, and there they will have honor, and since they were a race of blessed ones, happy men to whom Sabaoth gave a noble mind. And to these also he always confided his counsels, but they will be blessed, even entering Hades. Then thereafter another grievous, mighty, second race of earth-born men will arise, the Titans. Each individual will have a similar form, appearance, and size. There will be one nature, one language, as God previously put in their breasts from the first generation. But they also will have a proud heart. And finally, rushing towards destruction, will plot to fight in opposition against the starry heaven. Then the rushing of the mighty oceans of raging waters will be among them. But the great Sabaoth, in anger, will shut them out, preventing them, because he promised not to make a flood again against evil-spirited men. But when he will make the immense billows of waters of a wave surging this way and that to cease from anger, the great, loud, thundering God will reduce the depths of the sea to other measures, having defined it around the land with harbors and rough shores. Then indeed the Son of the great God will come, incarnate, likened to mortal men on the earth, bearing 4 vowels, and the consonants in him are 2. I will state explicitly the entire number for you. For 8 units, an equal number of tens in addition to these, and 8 hundreds will reveal the name. To men who are sated with faithlessness, but you consider in your heart Christ, the Son of the Most High, immortal God. He will fulfill the law of God. He will not destroy it, bearing a likeness which corresponds to types, and he will teach everything. Priests will bring gifts to him, bringing forward gold, myrrh, and incense, for he will also do all these things. But when a certain voice will come through the desert land, bringing tidings to mortals, and will cry out to all to make the paths straight and cast away evils from the heart, and that every human person be illumined by waters, so that being born from above they may no longer in any respect at all transgress justice, but a man with barbarous mind, enslaved to dances, will cut out this voice and give it as a reward. Then there will suddenly be a sign to mortals when a beautiful stone, which has been preserved, will come from the land of Egypt. Against this, the people of the Hebrews will stumble, but the Gentiles will be gathered under its leadership, for they will also recognize God who rules on high on account of this man's path in common light. For he will show eternal life to chosen men, but will bring the fire upon the lawless for all ages. Then indeed he will cure the sick and all who are blemished, for as many as put faith in him. The blind will see, the lame will walk, the deaf will hear, those who cannot speak will speak. He will drive out demons. There will be a resurrection of the dead. He will walk the waves. And in a desert place he will satisfy 5,000 from 5 loaves and a fish of the sea. And the leftovers of these will fill 12 baskets for the hope of the people. And then Israel, intoxicated, will not perceive, nor yet will she hear, afflicted with weak ears. But when the raging wrath of the Most High comes upon the Hebrews, it will also take faith away from them, because they did harm to the Son of the heavenly God. Then indeed Israel, with abominable lips and poisonous spittings, will give this man blows. For food they will give him gall, and for drink unmixed vinegar. Impiously smitten in breast and heart with an evil craze, not seeing with their eyes, more blind than blind rats, more terrible than poisonous creeping beasts, shackled with heavy sleep. But when he will stretch out his hands and measure all and bear the crown of thorns, and they will stab his side with reeds on account of this. For 3 hours there will be monstrous dark night in midday. And then, indeed, the temple of Solomon will effect a great sign for men when he goes to the house of Adonis, announcing the resurrection to the dead. But when he comes to light again in 3 days, and shows a model to men and teaches all things, he will mount on the clouds and journey to the house of heaven, leaving to the world the account of the gospel. Named after him, a new shoot will sprout from the nations of those who follow the law of the Great One. But also after these things there will be wise leaders, and then there will be thereafter a cessation of prophets. Then the Hebrews reap the bad harvest. A Roman king will ravage much gold and silver. Thereafter there will be other kingdoms, continuously as kingdoms perish, and they will affect mortals. But there will be a great fall for those men when they launch on unjust haughtiness. But when the temple of Solomon falls in the illustrious land, cast down by men of barbarian speech with bronze breastplates, the Hebrews will be driven from their land, wandering, being slaughtered. They will mix much darnel in their wheat. There will be evil strife for all men, and the cities, violated in turn, will weep for each other on receiving the wrath of the great God in their bosom, since they committed an evil deed. The Sibylline Oracles, Book 2. When indeed God stopped my most perfectly wise song as I prayed many things, he also again placed in my breast a delightful utterance of wondrous words. I'll speak the following with my whole person in ecstasy, for I do not know what I say, but God bids me utter each thing. But when on earth there are raging earthquakes and thunderbolts, thunders and lightnings, and mildew of the land, and frenzy of jackals and wolves, and slaughters and destructions of men, and bellowing oxen, 4-footed cattle, and laboring mules, and goats and sheep, then much farmland will be left barren through neglect, and fruits will fail. Selling of free men into slavery will be practiced among very many people, and robbing of temples. Then indeed the 10th generation of men will appear after these things, when the earth-shaking lightning-giver will break the glory of idols and shake the people of 7-hilled Rome. Great wealth will perish, burned in a great fire by the flame of Hephaestus. And then there will be bloody precipitation from heaven, but the entire world of innumerable men will kill each other in madness. In the tumult, God will impose famines and pestilences and thunderbolts on men who adjudicate without justice. There will be a scarcity of men throughout the whole world, so that if one were to see a man's footprint in the ground, one would wonder. And then further, the great God who lives in the sky will be a savior of pious men in all respects. Then also there will be a deep peace and understanding, and the fruitful earth will again bear more numerous fruits, being neither divided nor in servitude any longer. Every harbor, every port will be free for men, and as it was before, and shamelessness will perish, and then again God will perform a great sign. For a star will shine like a resplendent crown, resplendent, gleaming from the radiant heaven for no small number of days. For then he will show from heaven a crown to men who strive in contest. Then again there will be a great contest for entry to the heavenly city. It will be universal for all men, holding the glory of immortality. Then every people will strive for the immortal prizes of most noble victory. For no one there can shamelessly buy a crown for silver. For holy Christ will make just awards to these and crown the worthy. But to martyrs he will give an immortal treasure. To those who pursue the contest even to death, he will give an imperishable prize from the treasures, to virgins who run well, and to all men who perform justice, and to diverse nations who live piously and acknowledge one God, who love marriage and refrain from adultery. He will give rich gifts and eternal hope to these also, for every soul of mortals is a gracious gift of God, and it is not lawful for men to defile it with any grievous things. Do not gain wealth unjustly, but live from legitimate things. Be satisfied with what is available. Refrain from what belongs to others. Do not tell lies, but preserve all truths. Do not rever idols to no good purpose, but always the imperishable one. First, honor God, then your parents. Dispense all things justly, and do not come to an unjust judgment. Do not unjustly cast down poverty. Do not be partial in judgment. If you judge badly, God will judge you later. Avoid false witness. Adjudicate justly. Guard that which is deposited with you. Preserve love in all things. Give just measure, but an overmeasure to all is good. Do not cheat in measuring, but weigh evenly. Do not commit perjury, even in ignorance or willingly. God detests a perjurer, whatever one swears. Never accept in your hand a gift which derives from unjust deeds. Do not steal seeds. Whoever takes for himself is accursed, to generations of generations, to the scattering of life. Do not practice homosexuality. Do not betray information. Do not murder. Give one who has labored his wage. Do not oppress a poor man. Take heed of your speech. Keep a secret matter in your heart. Make provision for orphans and widows and those in need. Do not be willing to act unjustly. Therefore do not give leave to one who is acting unjustly. Give to the poor at once. Do not tell them to come tomorrow. With perspiring hand, give a portion of corn to one who is in need. Whoever gives alms knows that he is lending to God. Mercy saves from death when judgment comes. God wants not sacrifice, but mercy instead of sacrifice. Therefore, clothe the naked, give the hungry a share of your bread, receive the homeless into your house, and lead the blind. Pity the shipwrecked, for the voyage is uncertain. Give a hand to one who has fallen. Save a solitary man. All have a common lot, the wheel of life. Unstable prosperity. If you have wealth, stretch out your hand to the poor. The things which God gave you, give of them to one in need. Every life of men is common, but falls out unequally. When you see a poor man, never mock him with words. Do not verbally abuse a person who is at fault. Life is assessed in death. Whether one acted lawlessly or righteously will be distinguished when one comes to judgment. Do not damage your mind with wine or drink to excess. Do not eat blood. Abstain what is sacrificed to idols. Gird on the sword, not for killing, but for defense. May you not use it, either lawlessly or righteously. For even if you kill an enemy, you defile your own hand. Keep off a neighboring field. Do not trespass. Every boundary is just, but trespass is grievous. The acquisition of legitimate things is profitable, but that of unjust things is bad. Do not damage any fruit of the soil when it is growing. Let strangers have equal honor among citizens. For all will experience exile of many hardships, as guests of each other, but no one will be a stranger among you, since you are all mortals of one blood, and a country has no secure place for men. Neither wish to be wealthy, nor pray for it, but pray for this, to live on a little, having nothing unjust. The love of money is mother of all evil. Have no desire for gold. Also in these there will be a double-edged iron which destroys the spirit. Gold and silver are always a deception for men. Life-destroying gold, originator of evils, crushing all things, would that you were not a desired affliction for men, for because of you are battles, plunderings, murders, children hostile to their parents, and brothers to their kindred. Do not weave plots. Do not arm your heart against a friend. Do not hide one thought in your heart while you say another. Do not change in your place like a many-footed creature which clings to rock. Be straightforward with all. Speak what comes from your soul. Whoever deliberately does injustice is an evil man. As for one who acts under compulsion, I will not pronounce his end, but let the counsel of each man be straight. Do not boast of wisdom or strength or wealth. There is one God, at once wise, powerful, and rich. Do not wear out your heart with passing evils, for that which has happened can no longer be undone. Be not precipitous to the hand. Bridle wild anger, for often one who struck a blow unintentionally committed murder. Let your passions be normal, neither great nor excessive. Abundant profit is not good things for mortals. Much luxury draws towards inordinate desires. Great wealth is proud, and it fosters arrogance. Ire, when it takes the initiative, fashions a destructive frenzy. Anger is a propensity, but wrath goes to excess. The zeal of the good is noble, but that of the bad is bad. The daring of the wicked is destructive, but that of the good brings glory. Love of virtue is revered, but that of Aphrodite augments disgrace. A man who is too simple is called a fool amongst the citizens. Eat, drink, and discourse in moderation. Of all things, moderation is best, but excess is grievous. Be not envious or faithless, or a slanderer, or of evil mind, or an inordinate deceiver. Practice temperance. Refrain from base deeds. Do not imitate evil, but leave vengeance to justice. For persuasion is a profit, but strife engenders strife in turn. Do not trust quickly before you see the end with certainty. This is the gate of life, an entry to immortality, which the heavenly God appointed as a reward of victory for most righteous men. But they, when they receive the crown, will pass through this in glory. But whenever this sign appears throughout the world, children born with great temples from birth, afflictions of men, famines, pestilence, wars, change of times, lamentations, many tears, alas, how many people's children in the countries will feed on their parents with piteous lamentations. They will place their flesh in cloaks and bury them in the ground. Mother of peoples, defiled with blood and dust, O very wretched, dread, evil-doers of the last generation, infantile, who do not understand that when the species of females does not give birth, the harvest of articulate men has come. The gathering together is near, when some deceivers, in place of prophets, approach, speaking on earth. Belial also will come, and will do many signs for men. And then indeed there will be a confusion of holy, chosen, and faithful men, and there will be a plundering of these and of the Hebrews. A terrible wrath will come upon them, when a people of 10 tribes will come from the east to seek the people which the shoot of Assyria destroyed of their fellow Hebrews. Nations will perish after these things. Later, the faithful chosen Hebrews will rule over exceedingly mighty men, having subjected them as of old, since power will never fail. The Most High, who oversees them all, living in the sky, will spread sleep over men, having closed their eyes. O blessed servants, as many as the Master, when he comes, find awake, for they have all stayed awake, all the time looking expectantly with sleepless eyes. For he will come at dawn or evening or midday. He will certainly come, and it will be as I say. It will come to pass for future generations, when from the starry heaven all the stars appear in midday to all, with the 2 luminaries as time presses on. Then the Thespite, driving a heavenly chariot at full stretch from heaven, will come on earth and then display 3 signs to the whole world as life perishes. Alas, for as many are found bearing in the womb on that day, for as many as suckle infant children, for as many as dwell upon the wave, alas, for as many will see that day, for a dark mist will cover the boundless world, east and west and south and north. And then a great river of blazing fire will flow from heaven and will consume every place, land, great ocean, and gleaming sea, lakes, rivers, and springs, implacable Hades, and the heavenly vault. But the heavenly luminaries will crash together, also into an utterly desolate form, for all the stars will fall together from heaven on the sea. All the souls of men will gnash their teeth, burning in a river, and brimstone, and a rush of fire in a fiery plain, and ashes will cover all. Then all the elements of the world will be bereft. Air, land, sea, light, vault of heaven, days, nights. No longer will innumerable birds fly in the sky. Swimming creatures will no longer swim the sea at all. No laden ship will voyage on the waves. No guiding oxen will plow the soil. No sound of trees under the winds. But at once all will melt into one and separate into clear air. Then the imperishable angels of immortal God, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, who know what evils anyone did previously, lead all the souls of men from the murky dark to judgment, to the tribunal of the great immortal God. For one alone is imperishable, the universal ruler, himself, who will be judge of mortals. Then the heavenly one will give souls and breath and voice to the dead, and bones fastened with all kinds of joinings, flesh and sinews, and veins and skin about the flesh, and the former hairs. Bodies of humans made solid in heavenly manner, breathing and set in motion, will be raised on a single day. Then Uriel, the great angel, will break the gigantic bolts of unyielding and unbreakable steel of the gates of Hades. Not forged of metal, he will throw them wide open and will lead all the mournful forms to judgment, especially those of ancient phantoms, Titans, and the giants, and such as the flood destroyed. Also those whom the wave of the sea destroyed in the oceans, and as many as wild beasts and serpents and birds devoured, and all these he will call to the tribunal. Again, those whom the flesh-devouring fire destroyed by flame, these also he will gather and set at the tribunal of God. When Sabaoth Adonai, who thunders on high, dissolves fate and raises the dead, and takes his seat on a heavenly throne, and establishes a great pillar, Christ, imperishable himself, will come in glory on a cloud towards the imperishable one with the blameless angels. He will sit on the right of the Great One, judging at the tribunal the life of pious men and the way of impious men. Moses, the great friend of the Most High, also will come, having put on flesh. Great Abraham himself will come, Isaac and Jacob, Joshua, Daniel, Elijah, Habakkuk, and Jonah, and those whom Hebrews killed. He will destroy all the Hebrews after Jeremiah, judged on the tribunal, so that they may receive and make appropriate retribution for as much as anyone did in mortal life. And then all will pass through the blazing river and the unquenchable flame. All the righteous will be saved, but the impious will then be destroyed for all ages, as many as formerly did evil or committed murders. As many are accomplices, liars, and crafty thieves, and dread destroyers of houses, parasites and adulterers, who pour out slander, terrible violent men, lawless ones, and idol worshippers. As many as abandoned the great immortal God and became blasphemers and ravagers of the pious, breakers of faith and murderers of the righteous men. And as many elders and reverend deacons as, by crafty and shameless duplicity of regard, judge with respect, dealing unjustly with others, trusting in deceitful statements, more destructive than leopards and wolves, and most wicked, or as many as are very arrogant, or are usurers, who gather interest upon interest in their homes, and harm each other, each case often in windows. As many as give to widows and orphans what derives from unjust deeds. And as many as make reproach when they give from the fruit of their own labors, as many as abandon their parents in old age, not making return at all, but providing nourishment to their parents in turn. Also as many as disobeyed or answered back an unruly word to their parents, or as many as denied pledges they had taken, and such servants as turned against their masters. Again, those who defiled the flesh by licentiousness, or as many as undid the girdle of virginity, by secret intercourse, as many as aborted what they carried in the womb, as many as cast forth their offspring unlawfully. These and the sorcerers, sorceresses, in addition to them, will the anger of the heavenly imperishable God also bring near to the pillar, around which an undying fiery river flows in a circle. All these at once the angels of the immortal, everlasting God will punish terribly from above with whips of flame, having bound them around with fiery chains and unbreakable bonds. Then, in the dead of night, they will be thrown under many terrible infernal beasts of Gehenna, where there is immeasurable darkness. But when they have inflicted many punishments on all those whose heart was evil, then later a fiery wheel from the great river will press them hard all around, because they were concerned with wicked deeds. Then they will wail here and there at a distance in most piteous fate, fathers and infant children, mothers and weeping children at the breast. They will not have their fill of tears, nor will their voice be heard as they lament piteously here and there. But in distress they will shout at length, below dark, dank Tartarus. In places unholy they will repay threefold what evil deeds they committed, burning in much fire. They will all gnash their teeth, wasting away with thirst and raging violence. They will call death fair, and it will evade them. No longer will death or night give rest. Often they will request God, who rules on high, in vain, and then he will manifestly turn away his face from them. For he gave 7 days of ages to erring men for repentance through the intercession of the Holy Virgin. But as for the others, as many as were concerned with justice and noble deeds and piety and most righteous thoughts, angels will lift them through the blazing river and bring them to light and to life without care, in which is the immortal path of the great God, and 3 springs of wine, honey, and milk. The earth will belong equally to all, undivided by walls or fences. It will then bear no more abundant fruits. Spontaneously, lives will be in common, and wealth will have no division. For there will be no poor man there, no rich, no tyrant, no slave. Further, no one will be either great or small anymore. No kings, no leaders, all will be on a par together. No longer will anyone say at all, "Night has come," or "Tomorrow," or "It happened yesterday," or worry about many days. No spring, no summer, no winter, no autumn, no marriage, no death, no sales, no purchases, no sunset, no sunrise, for he will make a long day. To these pious ones, imperishable God, the universal ruler, will also give another thing. Whenever they ask the imperishable God to save men from the raging fire and deathless gnashing, he will grant it. And he will do this. For he will pick them out again from the undying fire and set them elsewhere and send them on account of his own people to another eternal life with the immortals. In the Elysian plain, where he has the long waves of the deep perennial Acherusian lake. Alas for me, wretched one, what will become of me on that day? In return for what I sinned, ill-minded one, busying myself about everything but caring neither for marriage nor for reasons, but also in my dwelling, which was that of a very wealthy man, I shut out those in need, and formerly I committed lawless deeds knowingly. But you, Saviour, rescue me, a brazen one, from my scourges. Though I have done shameless deeds, I beseech you to give me a little rest from the refrain. Holy river, giver of manna, king of a great kingdom. The Sibylline Oracles, Book 3. Blessed Heavenly One, who thunders on high, who have the cherubim as your throne, I entreat you to give a little rest to me who have prophesied unfailing truth. For my heart is tired within. But why does my heart shake again? Why is my spirit lashed by a whip, compelled from within to proclaim an oracle to all? But I will utter everything again, as much as God bids me say to men. Men, who have the form which God molded in his image, why do you wander in vain and not walk the straight path, ever mindful of the immortal Creator? There is one God, sole ruler, ineffable, who lives in the sky, self-begotten, invisible, who himself sees all things. No sculptor's hand made him, nor does he cast of gold or ivory reveal him, but the crafts of man. But he himself, eternal, revealed himself as existing now, and formerly and again in the future. For who, being mortal, is able to see God with eyes, or who will be able to even to hear only? The name of the great heavenly God who rules the world, who created everything by a word, heaven and sea, untiring sun, full moon, shining stars, strong mother Tethys, springs and rivers, imperishable fire, days, nights. Indeed, it is God himself who fashioned Adam of 4 letters, the first formed man, fulfilling by his name east and west and south and north. He himself fixed the shape of the form of men, and made wild beasts and serpents and birds. You neither rever nor fear God, but wander to no purpose, worshipping snakes, sacrificing to cats, speechless idols, and stone statues of people, and sitting in front of the doors at godless temples. You do not fear the existing God who guards all things. You rejoice in the evil of stones, forgetting the judgment of the immortal Saviour who created heaven and earth. Alas, for a race which rejoices in blood, a crafty and evil race of impious and false, double-tongued men and immoral, adulterous idol worshippers who plot deceit. There is wickedness in their breasts, a frenzy raging within. They ravage booty for themselves and have a shameless spirit. For no one who is rich and has possessions will give a share to another, but there will be a terrible wickedness among all mortals. They will have no fidelity at all. Many widowed women will love other men secretly for gain, and those who have husbands will not keep hold of the rope of life. But when Rome will rule over Egypt, guiding it towards a single goal, then indeed the most great kingdom of the immortal king will become manifest over men, for a holy prince will come to gain sway over the scepters of the earth forever, as time presses on. And then also implacable wrath will fall upon Latin men. 3 will destroy Rome with a piteous fate. All men will perish in their own dwellings when the fiery cataract flows from heaven. Alas, wretched ones, when will that day come, and the judgment of the great King, immortal God? Yet, just for the present, be founded cities, and all be embellished with temples and stadia, markets, and gold and silver, and stone statues, so that you may come to the bitter day. For it will come, when the smell of brimstone spreads amongst all men. But I will tell all in turn, in how many cities mortals will endure evil. Then Beliar will come from the Sebastanoid, and he will raise up the heights of the mountains. He will raise up the sea, the great fiery sun, the shining moon, and he will raise up the dead and perform many signs for men, but they will not be effective in him. But he will indeed also lead men astray, and he will lead astray many faithful, chosen Hebrews, and also other lawless men who have not yet listened to the word of God. But whenever the threats of the great God draw nigh, and a burning power comes through the sea to land, it will also burn Beliar, and all overbearing men, as many as put faith in him. Then indeed the world will be governed under the hands of a woman, and be obedient in everything. Then when a widow reigns over the whole world, and throws gold and silver into the wondrous brine, and casts the bronze and iron of ephemeral men into the sea, then all the elements of the universe will be bereft, when God, who dwells in the sky, rolls up the heavens as a scroll is rolled, and the whole variegated vault of heaven falls on the wondrous earth and ocean. An undying cataract of raging fire will flow and burn earth, burn sea, and melt the heavenly vault and days and creation itself into one, and separate them into clear air. There will no longer be twinkling spheres of luminaries, no night, no dawn, no numberless days of care, no spring, no summer, no winter, no autumn. And then indeed the judgment of the great God will come into the midst of the great world, when all these things happen. Oh, Oh, for the floating waters and all dry land, and the rising sun which will never set again. All will obey him as he enters the world again, because it was the first to recognize his power also. But when the threats of the great God are fulfilled, with which he once threatened men, when they built the tower in the land of Assyria, they were all of one language, and they wanted to go up to starry heaven. But immediately the Immortal One imposed a great compulsion on the winds, and then the winds cast down the great tower from on high, and stirred up strife for mortals amongst themselves. Therefore humans gave the city the name Babylon. But when the tower fell, and the tongues of men were diversified by various sounds, the whole earth of humans was filled with fragmented kingdoms. Then was the 10th generation of articulate men, from the time when the flood came upon the men of old. Kronos and Titan and Iapetus reigned, the best children of Gaia and Uranos, whom men called earth and heaven, giving them a name, because they were the first of articulate men. The portions of the earth were threefold, according to the lot of each, and each one reigned, having his share, and they did not fight, for they were oaths imposed by their father, and the divisions were just. When the full time, the old age of the father came, he also died, and the sons made a dire transgression of oaths, and stirred up strife against each other as to who should have royal honor and reign over all men. Kronos, Titan, fought against each other, but Rhea, Gaia, Aphrodite, who loves crowns, Demeter, Hestia, and fair-tressed Diona, brought them to friendship, having assembled all the kings, kindred, and brothers, and other men who were of the same blood and parents. And they chose Kronos king to rule over all, because he was the eldest and best in appearance. But Titan, for his part, imposed great oaths on Kronos, that he should not rear a family of male children, so that he himself might reign when old age and fate came upon Kronos. Whenever Rhea gave birth, the Titans sat by her, and they tore apart all the male children. But they allowed the females to live and be reared with their mother. But when Lady Rhea gave birth in the third childbearing, she brought forth Hera first. When they saw with their eyes the female species, the Titans, savage men, went home. Then Rhea bore a male child, whom she quickly sent away to be reared secretly and in private to Phrygia, having taken 3 Cretan men under oath, and therefore they named him Zeus, because he was sent away. Similarly, she sent away Poseidon secretly. Further, the third time, Rhea, marvel of women, bore Pluto as she went past Dodona, whence the watery paths of the river Europus flowed, and the water ran into the sea mingled with the Panesius, and they called it Stygian. When the Titans heard that children existed in secret, when Kronos had begotten with Rhea his consort, Titan assembled 60 sons, and held Kronos and Rhea his consort in fetters. He hid them in the earth and guarded them in bonds, and then indeed the son of mighty Kronos heard it, and they stirred up great war and din of battle against him. And this is the beginning of war for all mortals, for this is the beginning of war for mortals. Then God inflicted evil upon the Titans, and all the descendants of Titans and of Kronos died. But then as time pursued its cyclical course, the kingdom of Egypt arose, then that of the Persians, Medes, and Ethiopians, and Assyrian, Babylon, then that of the Macedonians, of Egypt again, and then Rome, and bade me prophesy concerning every land, and remind kings of the things that are to be. And God first put this in my mind: how many kingdoms of men will be raised up? The house of Solomon will rule first of all, and the Phoenicians, who disembark on Asia and other islands, and the race of the Pamphylians, and Persians and Phrygians, Carians and Mysians, and the race of the Lydians, rich in gold. Then the overbearing and impious Greeks, another great diverse race of Macedonia, will rule, who will come as a terrible cloud of war on mortals, but heavenly God will destroy them from the depth. But then will be the beginning of another kingdom, white, many-headed, from the western sea. It will rule over much land and will shake many, and will thereafter cause fear to all kings. It will destroy much gold and silver from many cities, but there will again be gold on the wondrous earth, and then silver also ornament. They will also oppress mortals. But those men will have a great fall when they launch on a course of unjust haughtiness. Immediately compulsion to impiety will come upon these men. Male will have intercourse with male. They will set up boys in houses of ill fame in those days. There will be a great affliction among men, and will throw everything into confusion. It will cut up everything and fill everything with evils, with disgraceful love of gain, ill-gotten wealth. And in many places, but especially in Macedonia, it will stir up hatred. Every kind of deceit will be found amongst them until the 7th reign, when a king of Egypt, who will be of the Greeks by race, will rule. Then the people of the great God will again be strong, who will be guides in life for all mortals. But why did God also prompt me to say this? What first? What next? What will be the final evil of all men? What will be the beginning of all these things? First, God will inflict evil upon the Titans, for they will make retribution to the sons of the mighty Kronos, because they bound Kronos and the noble mother. Second, the Greeks will have tyrannies and proud kings, overbearing and impious, adulterous and wicked in all respects. There will no longer be respite from war for mortals. All the terrible Phrygians will perish, and evil will come upon Troy on that day. Immediately evil will also come upon the Persians and Assyrians, all Egypt, Libya, and Ethiopians, so that great evil will be shared amongst the Carians and the Pamphylians and all men. But why should I narrate them individually? But when the first things reach an end immediately, the second things will come upon men. I will proclaim to you the first of all. Evil will come upon the pious men who live around the great temple of Solomon, and who are offspring of righteous men. Nevertheless, I will also proclaim the race of these, and the genealogy of their father, and the people of them all very thoughtfully. O devious, crafty mortal! There is a city in the land of Ur of the Chaldeans, whence comes a race of most righteous men. They are always concerned with good counsel and noble works, for they do not worry about the cyclical course of the sun, or the moon, or the monstrous things under the earth, nor the depths of the grim sea. Oceanus, no portents of sneezes, no birds of augurers, no seers, no sorcerers, no soothsayers, nor the deceits of foolish words of ventriloquists. Neither did they practice the astrological predictions of the Chaldeans, nor astronomy, for all these things are erroneous, such as foolish men inquire into day by day, exercising themselves at a profitless task. And indeed they have taught errors to shameful men, from which many devils come upon mortals on earth, so that they are misled as to good ways and righteous deeds. But they care for the righteous and the virtue, and not love of money, which begets innumerable evils for mortal men. War, limitless famine. They have just measurements in field and cities, and they do not carry out robberies at night against each other, nor drive off herds of oxen, sheep, or goats. Nor does neighbor move the boundaries of neighbor. Nor does a very rich man grieve a lesser man, nor oppress widows in any respect, but rather helps them, always going to their aid with corn, wine, and oil. Always a prosperous man amongst the people gives a share of the harvest to those who have nothing, but are poor, fulfilling the word of the great God, the hymn of the law, for the heavenly one gave the earth in common to all. But when the people of 12 tribes leave Egypt, and travels the path with leaders sent by God, traveling along at night with a pillar of fire, and travels by day every dawn with a pillar of cloud, he will appoint a great man as leader of the people, Moses, whom the queen found by the marsh, took home, reared, and called her son. But when he came leading this people, which God led from Egypt to the mountain Sinai, God also gave forth the law from heaven, having written all just ordinances on 2 tablets and enjoined them to perform it. If anyone should disobey, he would pay the penalty by the law, whether at human hands or escaping men. He would be utterly destroyed in all justice, for the Heavenly One gave the earth in common to all, and fidelity and excellent reason in their breasts. For these alone the fertile soil yields fruit, from 1 to 100-fold, and the measures of God are produced. But on these also evil will come, and they will not escape pestilence. And you will surely flee, leaving the very beautiful temple, since it was your fate to leave the holy plain. You will be led to the Assyrians, and you will see innocent children and wives in slavery to hostile men. All means of livelihood and wealth will perish. The whole earth will be filled with you, and every sea. Everyone will be offended at your customs. Your whole land will be desolate. Your fortified altar and temple of the great God and long walls will all fall to the ground, because you did not obey in your heart the holy law of the immortal God, but in error you worshipped unseemly idols, and you did not fear the immortal begetter of gods and of all men, but were not willing to honor him. But you honored the idols of mortals. And therefore for 7 decades of time all your fruitful earth and the wonders of the temple will be desolate. But a good end and very great glory await you, as immortal God decreed for you. But you remain trusting in the holy laws of the great God. Whenever he may lift your wearied knee upright to the light, and when the heavenly God will send a king, and will judge each man in blood and the gleam of fire. There is a certain royal tribe whose race will never stumble. This too, as time pursues its cyclical course, will reign, and it will begin to raise up a new temple of God. All the kings of the Persians will bring to their aid gold and bronze and much wrought iron. For God himself will give a holy dream by night, and then indeed the temple will again be as it was before. When indeed my spirit ceased the inspired hymn, and I entreated the great begetter that I might have respite from compulsion, the word of the great God rose again in my breast, and bade me prophesy concerning every land, and remind kings of the things that are to be. God prompted me to say this first: how many grievous woes the immortal devised for Babylon, because it destroyed his great temple. Woe to you, Babylon, and race of Assyrian men. At some time, rushing destruction will come upon the whole land of sinners, and a tumult will destroy the entire land of mortals, and an affliction of the great God, leader of hymns. For a heavenly eternal destruction will come upon you, Babylon, one day from above, and all the children of wrath, but it will come down upon you from heaven, from the holy ones. And then you will be as you were before, as if you had not been. Then you will be filled with blood, as you yourself formerly poured out the blood of good men and righteous men, whose blood even now cries out to high heaven. A great affliction will come upon you, Egypt, against your homes, a terrible one, which you never expected to come upon you. For a sword will pass through your midst, and scattering and death and famine will lay hold of you in the 7th generation of kings, and then you will rest. Woe to you, land of Gog and Magog, situated in the midst of Ethiopian rivers. How great an effusion of blood you will receive, and you will be called a habitation of judgment amongst men, and your dewy earth will drink black blood. Woe to you, Libya! Woe to you, sea and land, daughters of the west! How you have come to a bitter day! You will also come pursued by a hard struggle, terrible and hard. There will again be a terrible judgment, and you will all of necessity go to destruction, because You have utterly destroyed the great house of the immortal and have chewed it terribly with iron teeth. Therefore, you will see your land full of corpses, some slain by war, and every assault of the demon of famine and pestilence. Others by barbarous spirited enemies. All your land will be desolate, and your cities desolate ruins. But in the west a star will shine, which they call Cometes, a sign to mortals of sword, famine, and death, destruction of leaders, and of great illustrious men. There will again be a very great sign among men. The deep-flowing Tannius will leave Lake Mytos, and there will be the track of a fertile furrow down that deep stream. While the immense current occupies a narrow channel, there will be chasms and yawning pits. Many cities will fall with their inhabitants in Asia, Iasus, Sebren, Pandonia, Colophon, Ephesus, Nicaea, Antioch, Tanagra, Sinope, Smyrna, Maros, prosperous Gaza, Hierapolis, Astapalea of Europe, famous Sigra, royal Meropia, Antigone, Magnesia, divine Mycenae. Known then that the destructive race of Egypt is near destruction, and then for the Alexandrians the year which has passed will be the better one. However, much wealth Rome received from the tribute-bearing Asia, Asia will receive 3 times that much again for Rome, and will repay her deadly arrogance to her. Whatever number from Asia served the house of Italians, 20 times that number of Italians will be serfs in Asia, in poverty, and they will be liable to pay 10,000-fold of luxurious golden offspring of Latium, Rome, virgin often drunken with your weddings with many suitors. As a slave you will be wed without decorum. Often the mistress will cut your delicate hair, and dispensing justice will cast you from heaven to earth. But from earth will again rise you up to heaven, because mortals are involved in a wretched and unjust life. Samos will be sand, and Delos will become inconspicuous. Rome will be a street. All the oracles will be fulfilled. Smyrna will perish, and there will be no mention of it. There will be an avenger. But for the bad counsels and the wickedness of its leaders, serene peace will return to the Asian land, and Europe will be blessed. The air will be good for pasture for many years, bracing free from storms and hail, producing everything, including birds and creeping beasts of the earth, almost blessed. Whatever man or woman will live to what time. There will be report of the blessed ones as among country folk. For all good order and righteous dealings will come upon men from starry heaven, and with it temperate concord. Best of all things for men and love, faithfulness and friendship, even from strangers. Bad government, blame, envy, anger, folly, poverty will flee from men, and constraint will flee, and murder, accursed strife, and grievous quarrels, night robberies, and every evil in those days. But Macedonia will bring forth a great affliction for Asia, and a very great grief for Europe will spring up from the race of Kronos, the progeny of bastards and slaves. She will conquer even the fortified city of Babylon, having been called mistress of every land which the sun beholds. She will perish by evil fate, leaving a name among her much wandering posterity. Also at a certain time there will come to the prosperous land of Asia a faithless man, clad with a purple cloak on his shoulders, savage, stranger to justice, fiery, for a thunderbolt beforehand raised him up, a man. But all Asia will bear an evil yoke, and the earth, deluged, will imbibe much gore. But even so Hades will attend him in everything, though he knows it not. Those race he wished to destroy, by them will his own race be destroyed, and yet leaving one root, which the destroyer will also cut off. From 10 horns he will sprout another shoot on the side. He will smite a warrior and begetter of a royal race, and he himself will perish at the hands of his descendants in a conspiracy of war. And then the horn growing on the side will reign. There will also be immediately a sign for fertile Phrygia. When the abominable race of Rhea, a perennial shoot in the earth, flourishing with unthirsting roots, will disappear, stump and all, in a single night. In the city of the earth-quaking land-shaker, complete with its inhabitants, which they will at one time call by the name of Dodelion, of ancient, much-lamented dark Phrygia. That time is by name Earth-shaker. It will scatter the hiding places of the earth and undo walls. The signs will be a beginning, not of good, but of evil. It will have princes who are knowledgeable in the war of all tribes, producing native descendants of Aeneas, kindred blood. But thereafter you will be a prey to men who are lovers. Ilium, I pity you, for a fury will sprout in Sparta, a very beautiful, famous, most excellent shoot, leaving the widespread waves of Asia and Europe. It will bring lamentations and labor and groans, and inflict them especially on you. But your fame will be ageless for future generations. There will also be again a certain false writer, an old man of falsified fatherland. The light will go out in his eyes. He will have much intelligence and will have speech well proportioned to his thoughts, blended under two names. He will call himself Achaean and write the story of Ilium, not truthfully, but cleverly, for he will master my words and meters. He will be the first to unfold my books with his hands, but he will especially embellish the helmeted men of war. Hector, son of Priam, and Achilles, son of Peleus, and others, as many as cared for warlike deeds. He will also make gods to stand by these, writing falsely in every way about empty-headed men. It will also be a great story for these to die at Ilium, but he himself will also receive appropriate recompense. For Lycia, also the race of Locrus, will engender many evils. Chalcedon, to whose lot has fallen the way of the sea strait, you also will, Anatolian youth, at some time come and destroy. Cyzicus, the sea will also break off your great wealth. You, Byzantium, will love war in Asia, and receive groans and blood beyond reckoning. Kragos also, lofty mountain of Lycia. Water will rush from your peaks when the rock has been opened in a chasm, until it stops even the prophetic signs of Patara. Sicyon, inhabitants of wine-selling Propontis, the crested wave of Rhyndakas will crash around you. You also, Rhodes, will indeed be free from slavery for a long time. Daughter of a day, and you will have great wealth thereafter, and you will have power at sea surpassing others. But afterwards you will be a prey to lovers in beauty and wealth. You will place a terrible yoke on your neck. A Lydian earthquake will destroy the affairs of Persia, causing most dire disasters for Europe and Asia. The destructive king of the Sidonians and the battle cry of others will bring deadly destruction by sea on the Samians. The plain will sweep into the sea with the blood of perishing men. Wives with splendidly robed maidens will cry aloud. The private, unseemly outrage, some for the dead, some for sons who are perishing. A sign for Cyprus, an earthquake, will destroy the ravines, and Hades will receive many souls at once. Turalis, the neighbor of Ephesus, will all undo by an earthquake, her well-made walls and a people of grave-minded men. The earth will flood with boiling water, then the earth, weighed down, will drink of it. There will be a smell of brimstone. Samos also will build royal palaces in due time. Italy, no foreign war will come to you, but native blood, much bemoaned, inexhaustible, notorious, will ravage you. Shameless one, and you yourself, stretched out by the warm ashes, will kill yourself with no foresight in your breast. You will not be mother of good people, but nurse of wild beasts. But when a destructive man comes from Italy, then Laodicea, dashed down headlong by the wonderful water of Lycus, beautiful town of the Carians, you will bemoan your famous parent and be silent. The Thracian Crobizi will rise up throughout Haemus Chattering of teeth will come upon the companions because of the famine which destroys cities. Cyrnus, bemoaning its aged parent, and Sardinia will sink in the wave with sea children amid great storm of winter, and afflictions of the holy God throughout the depths of the sea. Alas, for all the virgins whom Hades will wed, and unburied youths whom the deep will attend. Alas, for infant children floating in the sea, and great wealth. The blessed land of Mysians will suddenly produce a royal race. Truly, Carthage will not survive long. There will be lamentation with many groans amongst the Galatians. A final but greatest disaster will come upon Tenedos, Brazen, Sicyon, and you, Corinth, will boast over all with howls, and the flute will sound equally. When indeed my spirit stopped its inspired hymn, the utterance of the great God arose in my breast and bade me prophesy concerning the earth. Woe to you, to the race of Phoenician men and women, and all the maritime cities. None of you will come to the sunlight in common light. No longer will there be a number and tribe alive because of the unjust tongue and lawless, unholy life which all have carried out, opening an unholy mouth, and they composed terrible words, false, unjust, and stood before God the great King, and they opened their loathsome mouth falsely. Therefore God will terribly subdue them with afflictions beyond all the earth, and send a bitter fate upon them, burning the cities from the ground, and many foundations. Woe to you, Crete, of many sorrows! To you will come affliction and fearful eternal destruction. The whole earth will again see you smoking, and fire will not leave you forever, but you will burn. Woe to you, Thrace! How you will come to a yoke of slavery, when Galatians mingled with the Dardedane, ravaged Greece with a swoop. And then will evil come upon you. You will give to another land, and will receive nothing. Woe to you, Gog and Magog, and to all in turn of the Marsians and Angeans. How many evils fate brings upon you, many too upon the sons of the Lycians and Massians and Phrygians. Many people of the Pamphalians and Lydians will fall. Morians and Ethiopians and strange-speaking peoples, Cappadocians and Arabs. Why, indeed, should I proclaim each one according to his fate? For on all peoples, as many as inhabit the earth, will the Most High send a terrible affliction. But when a vast barbarian people comes against the Greeks, it will destroy many heads of chosen men. They will ravage many fat flocks which belong to mortal men, and herds of horses and mules, and loud bellowing oxen. They will burn well-constructed houses lawlessly with fire, and will take many slaves to another land by compulsion, children and broad-girdled women, delicate ones from the chambers falling forward on tender feet. They will see themselves suffering every terrible outrage in fetters at the hand of strange-speaking enemies, and they will have no one to ward off a war, little or be a helper in life. They will see the enemy enjoy their private possessions and all their wealth. They will tremble beneath the knees. 100 will flee, but one will destroy them all. 5 will stir up grievous wrath, but shamefully coming to grips with each other in terrible war and din of battle. They will cause joy to their enemies, but grief to the Greeks. A yoke of slavery will come upon all Greece at once, and pestilence will come upon all. God will make a great bronze heaven on high, and cause drought over the whole earth, and make the earth iron. But then all mortals will weep terribly for the lack of sowing and plowing, and the one who created heaven and earth will set down much lamented fire on the earth. 1/3 of all mankind will survive. Greece, why do you rely on mortal leaders who are not able to flee the end of death? To what purpose do you give vain gifts to the dead and sacrifice to idols? Who put error in your heart that you should abandon the face of the great God and do these things? Rever the name of the one who has begotten all. Do not forget it. It's 1,000 years and 500 more since the overbearing kings of the Greeks reigned, who began the first evils of mortals, setting up many idols of dead gods. On account of them you have been taught vain thinking. But when the wrath of the great God comes upon you, then indeed you will recognize the face of the great God. All the souls of men will groan mightily and stretch out their hands straight to broad heaven, and begin to call on the great King as protector, and seek who will be a deliverer from great wrath. But come and learn this, and place it in your heart, how many woes there will be as the years circle on. Greece also, by offering the holocausts of oxen and loud bellowing bulls, which she has sacrificed at the temple of the great God, will escape the din of war and panic and pestilence, and will again escape the yoke of slavery. But the race of impious men will survive up to this point, whenever this fated day comes to pass. You will certainly not sacrifice to God until everything happens. What God alone has planned will not go unfulfilled. A strong necessity will insist that everything be fulfilled. There will again be a sacred race of pious men who attend to the counsels and intention of the Most High, who fully honor the temple of the great God with drink offerings and burnt offerings and sacred hecatombs, sacrifices of well-fed bulls, unblemished rams, and firstborn sheep, offering as holocausts fat flocks of lambs on a great altar in holy manner. Sharing in the righteousness of the law of the Most High, they will inhabit cities and rich fields in prosperity, themselves exalted as prophets by the Immortal, and bringing great joy to all mortals. For to them alone did the great God give wise counsel and faith, and excellent understanding in their breasts. They do not honor with empty deceits works of men, either gold or bronze or silver or ivory or wood and stone or clay idols of dead gods, red-painted likenesses of beasts, such as mortals honor with empty-minded counsels. For on the contrary, at dawn they lift up holy arms towards heaven, from their beds always sanctifying their flesh with water, and they honor only the Immortal who always rules, and then their parents. Greatly surpassing all men, they are mindful of holy wedlock, and they do not engage in impious intercourse with male children, as do the Phoenicians, Egyptians, and Romans, spacious Greece, and many nations of others. Persians, Galatians, and all Asia, transgressing the holy law of immortal God, which they transgressed. Therefore, the Immortal will inflict on all mortals disaster, and famine, and woes, and groans, and war, and pestilence, and lamentable ills, because they were not willing to piously honor the immortal begetter of all men, but honored idols made by hand, revering them, which mortals themselves will cast away, hiding them in clefts of rock, through shame, whenever the young seventh king of Egypt rules his own land, numbered from the dynasty of the Greeks, which the Macedonians, wonderful men, will found. A great king will come from Asia, a blazing eagle, who will cover the whole land with infantry and cavalry. He will cut up everything and fill everything with evils. He will overthrow the kingdom of Egypt. He will take out all its possessions and ride on the broad back of the sea. Then they will bend a white knee on fertile ground to God, the great immortal King. But all handmade works will fall in a flame of fire. And then God will give great joy to men. For earth and trees and countless flocks of sheep will give to men the true fruit of wine, sweet honey, white milk, and corn, which is best of all for mortals. But you, devious mortal, do not tarry in hesitation, but turn back, converting and propitiating God. Sacrifice to God hundreds of bulls and firstborn lambs and goats at the recurring times, but propitiate him, the immortal God, so that he may have pity, for he alone is God, and there is no other. Honor righteousness, and oppress no one, for so the immortal bids wretched mortals. But you, guard against the wrath of the great God whenever the culmination of pestilence comes upon all mortals, and they are subdued and meet with terrible justice. King will lay hold of king, take away territory. Peoples will ravage peoples, and potentates, tribes, all leaders will flee to another land. The land will have a change of men, and foreign rule will ravage all Greece and drain off the rich land of its wealth, and men will come face to face in strife amongst themselves because of gold and silver. Love of gain will be shepherd of all evils for cities. All will be unburied in a foreign country. Vultures and wild beasts of the earth will ravage the flesh of some, and indeed, when this is completed, the huge earth will consume the remains of the dead. It itself will be completely unsown and unploughed, wretched, proclaiming the curse of innumerable men for many lengths of yearly recurring times. Light shields, long shields, javelins, and diverse weapons, and not even wood will be cut from a thicket for the flame of the fire. And then God will send a king from the sun who will stop the entire earth from evil war, killing some, imposing oaths of loyalty on others, and he will not do all these things by his private plans, but in obedience to the noble teachings of the great God. The temple of the great God will be laden with very beautiful wealth, gold, silver, and purple ornament, and earth will be productive and sea full of good things. Kings will begin to be angry with each other, requiting evils with spirit. Envy is not good for wretched mortals, but again the kings of the people will launch an attack together against this land, bringing doom upon themselves, for they will want to destroy the temple of the great God, the most excellent men, when they enter the land. The abominable kings, each one with his throne and faithful people, will set them up around the city. And God will speak with a great voice to the entire ignorant, empty-minded people, and judgment will come upon them from the great God, and all will perish at the hand of the immortal. Fiery swords will fall from heaven on the earth. Torches, great gleams will come shining into the midst of men. The all-bearing earth will be shaken in those days by the hand of the immortal, and the fish in the sea, and all the wild beasts of the earth, and innumerable tribes of birds, and all the souls of men, and all the sea will shudder before the face of the immortal, and there will be a terror. He will break the lofty summits of the mountains and the mounds of giants, and the dark abyss will appear to all. High ravines in lofty mountains will be full of corpses. Rocks will flow with blood, and every torrent will fill the plain. All well-constructed walls of hostile men will fall to the ground, because they knew neither the law nor the judgment of the great God, but with mindless spirit you all launched an attack and raised spears against the sanctuary. God will judge all men by war and sword and fire and torrential rain. There will also be brimstone from heaven and stone and much grievous hail. Death will come upon four-footed creatures. Then they will recognize the immortal God who judges these things. Wailing and tumult will spread throughout the boundless earth at the death of men. All the impious will bathe in blood. The earth itself will also drink of the blood of the dying. Wild beasts will be sated with flesh. God himself, the great eternal one, told me to prophesy all these things, and these things will not go unfulfilled, nor is anything left unaccomplished that he so much as puts in mind. For the Spirit of God, which knows no falsehood, is throughout the world. But the sons of the great God will all live peacefully around the temple, rejoicing in these things which the Creator, just judge, and sole ruler will give. For he alone will shield them, standing by them magnificently, as if he had a wall of blazing fire about them. They will be free from war in towns and country, no hand of evil war, but rather the immortal himself. And the hand of the Holy One will be fighting for them. And then all islands and cities will say, How much the immortal loves those men. Everything fights on their side and helps them. Heaven, divinely driven sun and moon. But that the all-bearing earth will be shaken in those days. They will bring forth from their mouths a delightful utterance in hymns. Come, let us all fall on the ground and entreat the immortal King, the great eternal God. Let us send to the temple, since he alone is sovereign, and let us all ponder the law of the Most High God, who is most righteous of all throughout the earth. But we had wandered from the path of the immortal. With the mindless spirit we revered things made by hand, idols and statues of dead men. The souls of faithful men will cry out as follows: Come, let us fall on our faces throughout the people of God, and let us delight with hymns of God the begetter throughout our homes, gathering the weapons of enemies throughout all the land for 7 lengths of annually recurring times. Light shields, long shields, helmets, many diverse arms, a large number of bows also, and an abundance of unjust weapons, for not even wood will be cut from a thicket for the flame of the fire. But wretched Greece, desist from proud thoughts. Entreat the great-hearted immortal and take precautions. Do not send against this city your thoughtless people, which is not from the holy land of the Great One. Do not disturb Camarina, for it is better undisturbed. Do not disturb a leopard from its lair, lest evil befall you, but keep away from it. Do not have a proud, overbearing spirit in your breast, making ready for a hard contest. Serve the great God so that you may have a share in all these things. When indeed this fated day also reaches its consummation, and the judgment of immortal God comes upon mortals, a great judgment and dominion will come upon men. For the all-bearing earth will give the most excellent, unlimited fruit to mortals, of grain and wine and oil, a delightful drink of sweet honey from heaven, trees, fruit of the top branches, and rich flocks and herds and lambs of sheep and kids of goats. And it will break forth sweet fountains of white milk. The city will be full of good things, and the fields will be rich. There will be no sword on earth or din of battle, and the earth will no longer be shaken, groaning deeply. There will no longer be war or drought on earth, no famine, no hail damaging to fruits, but there will be great peace throughout the whole earth. King will be a friend to king to the end of the age. The immortal in the starry heaven will put in effect a common law for men throughout the whole earth, for all that is done amongst wretched mortals. For he himself alone is God, and there is no other, and he himself will burn with fire a race of grievous men. But urge on your minds in your breasts, and shun unlawful worship. Worship the living one. Avoid adultery and indiscriminate intercourse with males. Rear your offspring, and do not kill it, for the immortal is angry at whoever commits these sins. And then indeed he will raise up a kingdom for all ages among men. He who once gave the holy law to the pious, to all of whom he promised to open the earth and the world and the gates of the blessed, and all joys and immortal intellect and eternal cheer. From every land they will bring incense and gifts to the house of the great God. There will be no other house among men, even for future generations to know, except the one which God gave to faithful men to honor, for mortals will invoke the Son of the great God. All the paths of the plain and rugged cliffs, lofty mountains, and wild waves of the sea will be easy to climb or sail in those days, for all peace will come upon the land of the good. Prophets of the great God will take away the sword, for they themselves are judges of men and righteous kings. There will also be just wealth amongst men, for this is the judgment and dominion of the great God. Rejoice, maiden, be glad, For to you the one who created the heaven and earth has given the joy of the age. He will dwell in you. You will have immortal light. Wolves and lamb will eat grass together in the mountains. Leopards will feed together with kids. Roving bears will spend the night with calves. The flesh-eating lion will eat husks at the manger like an ox, and mere infant children will lead them with ropes, for he will make the beast on earth harmless. Serpents and asps will sleep with babies and will not harm them, for the land of God will be upon them. I will tell you a very clear sign, so that you may know when the end of all things come to pass on earth. When swords are seen at night in starry heaven, towards evening and towards dawn. And again dust is brought forth from heaven upon the earth, and all the light of the sun is eclipsed in the middle from heaven. And the rays of the moon appear and return to the earth. There will be a sign from the rocks. With blood and drops of gore, you will see a battle of infantry and cavalry in the clouds, like a hunt of wild beasts, like a mist. This is the end of war, which God who inhabits heaven is accomplishing. But all must sacrifice to the great king. I say these things to you, having left the long Babylonian walls of Assyria frenzied, a fire sent to Greece, prophesying the disclosures of God to all mortals, so that I prophesy divine riddles to men. Throughout Greece, mortals will say that I am of another country, a shameless one born of Eritrea. Some will say that I am a Sibylline, born of Circe, as mother, and Gnostos as father, as a crazy liar. But when everything comes to pass, then you will remember me, and no longer will anyone say that I am crazy. I, who am a prophetess of the great God, for he did not reveal to me what he had revealed before to my parents, but what happened at first, these things my father told me, and God put all of the future in my mind, so that I prophesy both future and former things and tell them to mortals. For when the world was deluged with waters, and a certain single approved man was left floating on the waters in a house of hewn wood, with beasts and birds, so that the world might be filled again, I was his daughter-in-law. I was of his blood. The first things happened to him, and all the latter things have been revealed. So let all these things from my mouth be accounted true. The Sibylline Oracles, Book 4. People of boastful Asia and Europe, give ear to the unfailing truths that I'm about to prophesy through my honey-voiced mouth from our shrine. I am not an oracle monger of false Phoebus, whom vain men call a god and falsely described as a seer, but of the great God, whom no hands of men fashioned in the likeness of speechless idols of polished stone. For he does not have a house, a stone set up as a temple, dumb and toothless, a bane which brings many woes to men, but one which is not possible to see from earth, no measure with mortal eyes, since it was not fashioned by mortal hand. He sees all at once, but is seen by no one himself. Dark night is his, and day, sun, stars, moon, and fish-filled seas, and land and rivers and source of perennial springs, things created for life, also showers which engender the fruit of the soil, and trees, both vine and olive. He it is who drove a whip through my heart within to narrate accurately to men what now is, and what will yet be, from the first generation until the 10th comes. For he himself will prove everything by accomplishing it. But you people, listen to the Sibyl in all things, as she pours forth true speech from her holy mouth. Happy will be those of mankind on earth who will love the great God, blessing him before drinking and eating, putting their trust in piety. They will reject all temples when they see them, altars too, unless foundations of dumb stones and stone statues and handmade images, defiled with blood of animate creatures and sacrifices of four-footed animals. They will look to the great glory of the one God and commit no wicked murder, no deal in dishonest gain, which are most horrible things. Neither have they disgraceful desire for another's spouse, or for hateful and repulsive abuse of a male. Other men will never imitate their way, or piety, or customs, because they desire shamelessness. On the contrary, they deride them with mockery and laughter. Infantile in their foolishness, they will falsely attribute to those what wicked and evil deeds they themselves commit. For the entire race of men is slow of faith, but when the judgment of the world and of mortals has already come, which God himself will perform, judging impious and pious at once, then he will also send the impious down into the gloom in fire, and then they will realize what impiety they've committed. But the pious will remain on the fertile soil, and God will give them spirit and life and favor at once, and all these things will be accomplished in the 10th generation. But now, the things which will happen from the first generation, these will I say. First, the Assyrians will rule over all mortals, holding the world in their dominion for 6 generations, from the time when the heavenly God was in wrath with the cities themselves and all men, and the seas covered the earth when the flood burst forth. These will the Medes destroy and boast on their thrones. They will have only 2 generations. In their time the following things will take place. There will be a dark night in the mid-hour of day. The stars and the circles of the moon will disappear from heaven. The earth, shaken by the turmoil of a great earthquake, will cast down headlong many cities and works of men. Then islands will emerge from the depths of the sea. But when the great Euphrates is flooded with blood, then indeed a terrible din of battle will arise for the Medes and Persians in war. The Medes will fall under the spears of the Persians and flee over the great waters of the Tigris. The power of the Persians will be the greatest of the whole world. They are destined to have 1 generation of very prosperous rule. All evils which men pray to be spared will come to pass. Battles and murders, dissensions and exiles, headlong crashes of towers, and overthrow of cities. When boastful Greece sails to the wide Hellespont, bringing grievous doom to the Phrygians in Asia. Further, famine and failure of crops will visit much furrowed wheat-bearing Egypt for a 20-year cycle, when the Nile, which nourishes corn, hides its dark water somewhere else under the earth. A king will come from Asia, brandishing a great spear with countless ships. He will walk the watery paths of the deep and will cut through a lofty mountain as he sails. Him will wretched Asia receive as a fugitive from war, when the flame of Etna belches forth a stream of great fire. It will burn all miserable Sicily, and the great city Croton will fall into the deep stream. There will be strife in Greece, raging against each other. They will cast many cities down headlong and will destroy many men by fighting. But the strife will have equal effect on all parties. But when the race of men comes to the 10th generation, then there will also be yokes of slavery and terror for the Persians. But when the Macedonians boast of scepters thereafter, there will also be dire capture for Thebes. The Carians will inhabit Tyre, and the Tyrans will perish. Sand will cover all Samos and the beaches. Delos will no longer be visible, and all the affairs of Delos will be inconspicuous. Babylon, great in appearance but insignificant in battle, will stand built on useless hopes. Macedonians will colonize Bactria, but the people of Bactria and Susa will all flee to the land of Greece. It will come to pass in future generations that Paramus of the silver current, pouring forward its shoreline, will reach the sacred island, and you, Baris, will fall. And Ciscius, when cities slide, as the earth is shaken by earthquakes, upon the Rhodians too a final but greatest disaster will come. Nor will the power of Macedonia survive, but from the west a great Italian war will bloom under which the world will serve, bearing the yoke of slavery for the Italians. You also, miserable Corinth, will one day behold your capture. Carthage, your tower, will also bend the knee to the ground. Wretched Laodicea, at some time an earthquake will throw you headlong and spread you flat, but you will be founded again as a city and stand. Beautiful Myra of Lycia, the shuddering earth will no longer support you, but falling down headlong on the earth, you will pray to flee to another land as an exile when the Lord spreads out the dark water of the sea with thunderings and earthquakes because of the impieties of Patara, Armenia. The compulsion of slavery awaits you also. An evil storm of war will also come upon Jerusalem from Italy. It will sack the great temple of God. Whenever they put their trust in folly and cast off piety and commit repulsive murders in front of the temple, then a great king will flee from Italy like a runaway slave, unseen and heard over the channel of the Euphrates, when he dares to incur a maternal curse for repulsive murder and many other things, confidently with wicked hand. When he runs away beyond the Parthian land, many will bloody the ground for the throne of Rome. A leader of Rome will come from Syria, who will burn the temple of Jerusalem with fire and at the same time slaughter many men and destroy the great land of the Jews with its broad roads. Then indeed an earthquake will destroy at once Salamis and Paphos, when the dark water overwhelms Cyprus, which is washed by many waves. But when a firebrand, turned away from a cleft in the earth in the land of Italy, reaches to broad heaven, it will burn many cities and destroy men. Much smoking ashes will fill the great sky, and showers will fall from heaven like red earth. Know then the wrath of the heavenly God, because they will destroy the blameless tribe of the pious. Then the strife of war being aroused will come to the west, and the fugitive from Rome will also come, brandishing a great spear, having crossed the Euphrates with many myriads. Wretched Antioch! They will no longer call you a city, when you fall under spears by your own folly, and then pestilence and terrible din of battle will destroy Cyprus. Woe to you, miserable Cyprus! A broad wave of the sea will cover you when you have been tossed up by wintry blasts. Great wealth will come to Asia, which Rome itself once plundered and deposited in her house of many possessions. She will then pay back twice as much and more to Asia. And then there will be a surfeit of war. A bitter famine will destroy the cities of the Carians, which are very beautiful, turreted by the waters of the Meander, whenever the Meander hides its dark water. But when faith and piety perishes from among men, and justice is hidden in the world, untrustworthy men living for unholy deeds will commit outrage, wicked and evil deeds. No one will take account of the pious, but they will even destroy them all by foolishness. Very infantile people, rejoicing in outrages and applying their hands to blood. Even then, know that God is no longer benign, but gnashing his teeth in wrath and destroying the entire race of men at once by a great conflagration. Oh, wretched mortals, change these things and do not lead the great God to all sorts of anger, but abandon daggers and groanings, murders and outrages, and wash your whole bodies in perennial rivers. Stretch out your hands to heaven and ask forgiveness for your previous deeds, and make propitiation for bitter impiety with words of praise. God will grant repentance and will not destroy. He will stop his wrath again if you all practice honorable piety in your heart. But if you do not obey me, evil-minded ones, but love impiety and receive all these things with evil ears, there will be fire throughout the whole world, and a very great sign with sword and trumpet at the rising of the sun. The whole world will hear a bellowing noise, a mighty sound. He will burn the whole earth and will destroy the whole race of men and all cities and rivers at once, and the sea. He will destroy everything by fire, and it will be smoking dust. But when everything is already dusty ashes, and God puts to sleep the unspeakable fire, even as he kindled it, God himself will again fashion the bones and ashes of men, and he will raise up mortals again as they were before. And then there will be a judgment over which God himself will preside, judging the world again. As many as sin by impiety, these will a mound of earth cover, the broad Tartarus and the repulsive recesses of Gehenna. But as many are pious, they will live on earth again, when God gives spirit and life and favor to these pious ones. And then they will all see themselves beholding the delightful and pleasant light of the sun. Oh, most blessed, whatever man will live to that time. The Sibylline Oracles, Book 5. But come, hear my woeful history of the Latin race. First of all, indeed, after the death of the kings of Egypt, all of whom the even-handed earth took under, and after the citizen of Pella, to whom all the east and prosperous west were subjected, whom Babylon tested and held out as a corpse to Philip, alleged, not truly to be descended from Zeus or Ammon, and after the one of the race and the blood of Ascarakis, who came from Troy, who split the onslaught of fire, and after many princes, after warlike people, and after infants, children of the flock-devouring beast, there will be the first prince, who will sum up twice 10 with his initial letter. He will conquer long in wars. He will have his first letter of 10, so that after him will reign whoever obtained as initial the first of the alphabet. Thrace will crouch before him, and Sicily, then Memphis. Memphis cast down headlong through the wickedness of its leaders and of an indomitable woman who fell upon the wave. He will give laws to the peoples and subordinate all things. After a long time, he will hand over sovereignty to another, who will present a first letter of 300, and the beloved name of a river. He will rule over Persians and Babylon. He will indeed then conquer the Medes with the spear. Then whoever obtained an initial of 3 will rule. Next, a prince who will have twice 10 on his first letter, but he will reach the farthest waters of Oceanus, cleaving the tide under the Ausonians. One who has 50 as an initial will be commander. A terrible snake, breathing out grievous war, who one day will lay hands on his own family and slay them and throw everything into confusion. Athlete, charioteer, murderer, one who dares 10,000 things. He will also cut the mountain between 2 seeds and defile it with gore. But even when he disappears, he will be destructive, and then he will return declaring himself equal to God. But he will prove that he is not. 3 princes after him will perish at each other's hands. Then will come a certain great destroyer of pious men, who shows a clear initial of 7 times 10. His son, with the first initial of 300, will get the better of him and take away his power. After him will be a commander with an initial of 4, a cursed man, but then a revered man of the number 50 after him, one who obtained a marked initial of 300, a Celtic mountaineer hastening to an eastern war. He will not avoid an unseemly fate, but will die. Foreign dust will cover him, a corpse, but dust which has the name of the Nemean flower. After him another will reign, a silver-headed man. He will have the name of a sea. He will also be a most excellent man, and he will consider everything. And in your time, most excellent, outstanding, dark-haired one, and in the days of your descendants, all these days will come to pass. After him 3 will rule, but the third will come to power late in life. Thrice Wretched one, I am weary of putting an utterance of disaster in my heart, and the inspired chants of oracles. I, who am the familiar friend of Isis, first, indeed, around the steps of your much-lamented people, Maenads will dart, and you will be in bad hands. On that day, when the Nile traverses the whole land of Egypt up to 16 cubits, so as to flood the whole land and drench it with streams, the beauty of the land and the glory of its appearance will disappear. Memphis, you indeed will weep most of all over Egypt, for formerly you were the one who mightily ruled the land. Wretched one, so that even he who rejoices in thunder will cry out from heaven with a great voice, Mighty Memphis, who formerly boasted most to wretched mortals, you will weep in dire straits and disastrous fate, so that the eternal immortal God will notice you in the clouds. Where is your sturdy spirit among men? Because you raged against my children, who are anointed by God, and incited evil against good men. You, in return, have such a nurse for recompense. You will no longer have any right openly among the blessed. You have fallen from the stars. You will not go up to heaven. These things God bade me declare to Egypt in the final time, when men will be utterly evil, but the wicked endure evil. Awaiting the anger of the immortal, deep-sounding Heavenly One, they worship stones and brute beasts instead of God, revering many things, one here, another there, which have no reason, or mind, or hearing, and things which is not even lawful for me to mention. The particular types of idols brought into being by the hands of mortals, from their own labors and wicked notions, men have accepted gods of wood and stone. They have made them of bronze and gold and silver, vain, lifeless, dumb, smelted in fire, vainly putting their trust in these. Thmois and Zeus are oppressed. The counsels of Heracles, Zeus, and Hermes is cut off. And you, Alexandria, famous nurse of cities, woe will not leave you. You will make retribution for pride, the things you formerly did. You will be silent for a long age, and the day of your return, and the luxurious drink will no longer flow for you. For the Persians will come onto your soil like hail, and he will destroy your land, and evil devising men with blood and corpses by terrible altars, a savage-minded mighty man, much bloodied, raving nonsense, with a full host, numerous as sand, bringing destruction on you. And then, most prosperous of cities, you will be in great distress. All Asia falling to the ground will lament for the gifts she enjoyed from you when she wore a crown on her head. But the one who obtained the land of the Persians will fight, and killing every man, he will destroy all life, so that a 1/3 portion will remain for wretched mortals. He himself will rush in with a light bound from the west, besieging the entire land, laying it all waste. But when he attains a formidable height and unseemly daring, he will also come, wishing to destroy the city of the blessed ones, and then a certain king, sent from God against him, will destroy all the great kings and noble men. Thus there will be judgment on men by the imperishable one. Alas for you, wretched heart! Why do you provoke me? To show these things to Egypt, a grievous multiplicity of sovereignty. Go to the east, to the mindless tribes of the Persians, and show them what now is and what will be. The current of the river Euphrates will bring on a flood and will destroy Persians, Iberians, and Babylonians, and Massagetae, who love war and trust in bows. All Asia will blaze, burnt with fire as far as the islands. Pergamos, which was formerly revered, will perish like a bunch of grapes. Pitane will appear totally desolate among men. All Lesbos will sink in the deep abyss so as to perish. Smyrna will one day weep, rolled down to the cliffs. She, who was once revered and famous, will perish. Bithynians will bewail her land, reduced to ashes, and great Syria, and Phoenicia, of many tribes. Woe to you, Lycia, how many evils the sea devises against you, spontaneously encroaching on the grievous land, so that it will flood with the bad earthquake and bitter streams the watery shore of Lycia, which was once breathed perfume. A terrible wrath will come upon Phrygia because of the pain of which Rhea, mother of Zeus, came and remained there. The sea will destroy the race and savage people of the Tauri, and will destroy the plain of the Lapiths, and break it off down from the earth. A deep eddying river, deep flowing, Peneus, will destroy the land of Thessaly, chasing men from the land. Eridanus, which claims to have once begotten forms of wild beasts. The poets will bewail thrice wretched Greece, when a great king of that Rome, a godlike man from Italy, will cut the ridge of the isthmus. Him, they say, Zeus himself begot, and Lady Hera, playing at theatricals with honey-sweet songs rendered with melodious voice, he will destroy many men, and his wretched mother. He will flee from Babylon, a terrible and shameless prince whom all mortals and noble men despise, for he destroyed many men and laid hands on the womb. He sinned against spouses. It was sprung from the abominable people. He will come to the Medes and to the kings of the Persians, those whom he first desired and to whom he gave glory, lurking with these evil ones against a true people. He seized the divinely built temple and burnt the citizens and peoples who went into it, men whom I rightly praised. For on his appearance the whole creation was shaken, and kings perished, and those in whom the sovereignty remained destroyed a great city and righteous people. But when, after the 4th year, a great star shines, which alone will destroy the whole earth, because of the honor which they first give to Poseidon of the sea, a great star will come from heaven to the wondrous sea, and will burn the deep sea and Babylon itself and the land of Italy, because of which many holy, faithful Hebrews and true people perished. You will be among evil mortals, suffering evils, but you will remain utterly desolate for all ages yet. It will exist, but it will remain utterly desolate forever, despising your soil because you desired sorcery. With you are found adulteries, illicit intercourses with boys, effeminate and unjust, evil city, ill-fated above all. Alas, city of the Latin land, unclean in all things. Maynard, rejoicing in vipers, as a widow you will sit by the banks, and the river Tiber will weep for you, its consort. You have a murderous heart and an impious spirit. Did you not know what God can do, what he devises? But you said, I alone am. No one will ravage me. But now God, who is forever, will destroy you and all your peoples, and there will no longer be any sign of you in that land, as there was formerly. When the great God found your honors, remain alone, lawless one, mingled with burning fire. Inhabit the lawless nether region of Hades. Now again, Egypt, I will bewail your fate. Memphis, you will be leader of labors, smitten on the ankles. In you the pyramids will utter a shameless sound. Python, rightly called double city of old, be silent forever so that you may desist from wickedness. Arrogance, treasury of evil labors. Maynard, of many laments, dire sufferer, tearful one, you will remain a widow forever. For many years you alone were ruler of the world, but when Barca puts on a white skirt over a dirty one, may I neither be nor come into being. O Thebes, where is your great strength? A savage man will destroy your people, but you will take grey garments and lament, wretched one, alone, and will make retribution for everything which you did before, having a shameless spirit. They will see lamentation because of lawless deeds. A great man of the Ethiopians will destroy Sini. Dark-skinned Indians will occupy Tachuria, by force, Pentapolis. You will weep. But a very mighty man will destroy you, much lamented Libya, who will narrate your doom. Cyrene, who of men will weep piteously for you? You will not desist from hideous lamentations until the time of destruction. Among the Britons and wealthy Gauls, the ocean will be resounding, filled with much blood. For they also did evil to the children of God when the Purple King led a great Gallic host from Syria against the Sidonians. He will also kill you, Ravenna, and lead you to slaughter. Indians have no courage, and great-spirited Ethiopians. For when the wheel of arched axis, Capricorn, and Taurus, amid Gemini, revolves in the mid-heaven, Virgo coming forth, and the sun, fixing a belt all about its brow, shall lead, there will be a greatly heavenly conflagration on earth, and from the battling stars a new nature will emerge, so that the whole land of the Ethiopians will perish in fire and groanings. You too, Corinth, bewail the mournful destruction within you. For when the three sister fates, spinning with twisted threads, lead the one who is now fleeing deceitfully beyond the bank of the isthmus on high, so that all may see him, who formerly cut out the rock with ductile bronze, he will destroy and ravage your land also, as is decreed. For to him God gives strength to perform things like no previous one of all the kings. For first of all, cutting off the roots from 3 heads, mightily with a blow, he will give them to others to eat, so that they will eat the flesh of the parents of the impious king. For murder and terrors are in store for all men, because of the great city and righteous people, which is preserved throughout everything, which providence held in a special place. Arrogance, unstable one of evil counsels, surrounded by evil fates, beginning and great end of toil for men, when creation is damaged and saved again by the fates. Leader of evils and great affliction to men, which of mortals desired you, who did not resent you within. But you, a certain king, cast down, destroyed his revered life. You arranged all things badly, and brought on a full flood of evil, and through you the beautiful folds of the world were changed. Put forward these causes for our strife. Perhaps they are the last. How and what do you say? I will persuade you, and even if I blame you somewhat, I will speak. There was once among men a shining light of the sun, when the harmonious ray of the prophets was being spread abroad. A tongue dripped a beautiful drink for all mortals with honeyed sweetness. It made manifest, offered, and affected gentle things for all. Therefore, narrow-minded leader of greatest evils, the reaping hook and grief will come in that day, beginning and great end of toil for men, when creation is damaged and saved again by the fates. Give ear to the bitter, harsh-sounding speech, you affliction to men. But whenever the Persian land desists from war, pestilence, and groanings, then on that day it will come to pass that the divine and heavenly race of the blessed Jews, who live around the city of God in the middle of the earth, are raised up even to the dark clouds, having built a great wall around about as far as Joppa. No longer will trumpet whistle the sound of war, no longer will they perish at raging hostile hands, but they will set up trophies won from the wicked forever. There will again be one exceptional man from the sky, who stretched out his hands on the fruitful wood, the best of the Hebrews, who will one day cause the sun to stand, speaking with fair speech and holy lips. Blessed one, no longer weary your spirit in your breast. Divinely born, wealthy, soul-desired flower, good light, holy shoot, beloved plant, delightful Judea, fair city, inspired with hymns, no longer will the unclean foot of Greeks revel around your land, but they will have a mind in their breasts that conforms to your laws. But glorious children will honor you exceedingly, and they will attend table with devout music, all sorts of sacrifices, and with prayers honoring God. Such righteous men as endured toils will receive greater pleasant things in exchange for a little distress. But the wicked, who dispatched lawless utterances against heaven, will desist from speaking against each other, but will hide themselves until the world is changed. There will be a shower of blazing fire from the clouds, and mortals will no longer enjoy bright corn from the earth. All will remain unsown, unplowed, until mortal men pay attention to the immortal, eternal God, ruler of all, and no longer honor mortal things, neither dogs nor vultures, which Egypt taught men to revere with vain mouths and foolish lips. But the holy land of the pious alone will bear all these things, a honey-sweet stream from the rock and spring, and heavenly milk will flow for all the righteous, and for with great piety and faith they will put their hope in the one begetter, God, who alone is eminent. But why does my clever mind suggest these things to me? Now, wretched Asia, I bewail you piteously, the race of the Ionians, Carians, Lydians, rich in gold. Woe to you, Sardis! Woe, lovely Tralles! Woe, Laodicea, beautiful city! How you will perish, destroyed by earthquakes and changed to dust. To dark Asia, the well-built shrine of Artemis of Ephesus, with cleavings and earthquakes, will fall to the wondrous sea headlong. A storm winds overwhelm ships. Ephesus, supine, will wail, weeping on the shores, seeking the temple which no longer there. And then the imperishable God, who dwells in the sky in anger, will cast a lightning bolt from heaven against the power of the impious. Instead of winter, there will be summer on that day, and then indeed there will be great affliction for mortal men. For the one who thunders on high will destroy all shameless men with thunders and lightnings and blazing thunderbolts on hostile men, and he will destroy the impious in such a manner that corpses will remain on earth more numerous than sand. Smyrna also will come, bewailing its musicians, to the gates of Ephesus, and she herself will truly perish. Foolish Kyme, with her divinely inspired streams, cast down at the hands of godless, unjust, and lawless men, will no longer take her chariot forward to such a height, but will remain a corpse in swelling streams. And then they will cry out at once, awaiting evil. The difficult people and shameless tribes of the Cumaeans will have a sign and know because of what it labored. Then, when they bewail a wicked land reduced to ashes, Lesbos will be destroyed forever by Eridanus. Woe to you, Cabiria, fair city, desist from revelry. Hierapolis also, the only land which is mingled with Pluton. You will have what you have desired to have, a land of many tears, piling a mound on the earth by the streams of Thermodon, rock-clinging Tripolis by the waters of Damiander, a portion to nightly waves on the shore, and providence of God will one day destroy you utterly. May I never willingly take the land which is neighbors to Phoebus. A lightning bolt from above will one day destroy luxurious Miletus, because it chose the deceitful strain of Phoebus and the clever practice of men and prudent counsel. Be gracious, begetter of all, to the fertile, luxurious great land of Judea, so that we may behold your plans, for you knew this one first, God, with favors, so that she seemed to be your special gift to all men, and to attend as God enjoined. Thrice wretched one, I desired to see the affairs of the Thracians, and the wall between two seas swept down in the dust by Ares, sweeping like a river on a fishing diver. Wretched Hellespont, one day the offsprings of the Assyrians will put a yoke on you. The battle of the Thracians against you will utterly destroy your mighty strength. An Egyptian king seizes Macedonia, a foreign region, will cast down the strength of leaders. Lydians and Galatians, Pamphylians and Pisidians en masse will conquer, armed in evil strife. Thrice wretched Italy, all desolate and wept, you will await a destructive beast in a looming land to be destroyed. It will be possible to hear a heavenly crash of thunder, the voice of God throughout the broad heavens above. The imperishable flames of the sun itself will no longer be, nor will the shining light of the moon be any more. In the last time, when God assumes command. Everything will be blackened. There will be darkness throughout the earth, and blind men, evil wild beasts, and woe. That day will last a long time, so that men will take note of God himself, the Prince who oversees all from heaven. Then he will not pity hostile men, who sacrifice herds of lambs and sheep and loud bellowing bulls and great golden horn calves to lifeless Hermes and gods of stone. But let law, wisdom, and glory rule over the righteous, lest one day the imperishable God in anger destroy the livelihood of men with every race and a shameless tribe. It is necessary to love God, the wise, eternal begetter. There will come to pass in that last time, about the waning of the moon, a war which will throw the world into confusion and be deceptive in guile. A man who is a matricide will come from the ends of the earth in flight and devising penetrating schemes in his mind. He will destroy every land, conquer all, and consider all these things more wisely than all men. He will immediately seize the one because of whom he himself perished. He will destroy many men and great rulers. And he will set fire to all men as no one else ever did. Through zeal he will raise up those who were crouched in fear. There will come upon men a great war from the west. Blood will flow up to the bank of deep eddying rivers. Wrath will drip in the plains of Macedonia, an alliance to the people from the west, but destruction for the king. Then a wintry blast will blow throughout the land, and the plain will be filled again with evil war. For fire will rain on men from the floors of heaven, fire and blood, water, lightning bolts, darkness, heavenly night, and destruction in war, and a mist over the slain will destroy at once all kings and noble men. Then the piteous destruction of war will cease thus, and no longer will anyone fight with swords or iron or with weapons at all, which will no longer be lawful. A wise people which is left will have peace, having experienced evil, so that it might later rejoice. Matricides, desist from boldness and evil daring, you who formerly impiously catered for pedastry, and set up in houses prostitutes, who were pure before, with insults and punishments and toilsome disgrace. For in you mother had intercourse with child unlawfully, and daughter was joined with her begetter as bride. In you also kings defile their ill-fated mouths. In you also evil men practiced bestiality. Be silent, most lamentable evil city which indulges in revelry. No longer in you will virgin maidens tend the divine fire of sacred, nourishing wood. The desired temple has long ago been extinguished by you. When I saw the second temple cast headlong, soaked in fire by an impious hand, the ever-flourishing, watchful temple of God, made holy by people and hoped by their soul and body to be always imperishable, for among them no one carelessly prays to God or insignificant clay, nor did a clever sculptor make one from rock, nor worship ornament of gold, a deception of souls. But they honored the great God, begetter of all, who have God-given breath, with holy sacrifices and hectic tombs. But now a certain insignificant and impious king has gone up, cast it down, and left it in ruins with a great horde and illustrious men. He himself perished at immortal hands when he left the land, and no sign has yet been performed among men that others should think to sack a great city. For a blessed man came from the expanses of heaven, with a scepter in his hands, which God gave him, and he gained sway over all things as well, and gave back the wealth to all the good which previous men had taken. He destroyed every city from its foundations with much fire, and burnt nations of mortals who were formerly evildoers. And the city which God desired, this he made more brilliant than stars and sun and moon, and he provided ornament and made a holy temple exceedingly beautiful in its fair shrine, and he fashioned a great and immense tower over many stadia, touching even the clouds and visible to all, so that all faithful and all righteous people could see the glory of eternal God, a form desired. East and west sang out the glory of God, for terrible things no longer happen to wretched mortals. No adulteries or illicit love of boys, no murder, no din or battle, but competition is fair amongst all. It is the last time of holy people when God, who thunders on high, founder of the greatest temple, accomplishes these things. Woe to you, Babylon, of golden throne, golden sandal! For many years you were the sole kingdom ruling over the world. You, who were formerly great and universal, you will no longer lie on golden mountains and streams of the Euphrates. You will be spread out flat by the turmoil of an earthquake. Terrible Parthenian, it made you shake all over. Restrain your mouth with a bridle, impious race of Babylonians. Neither ask nor take thought how you will rule over the Persians, or how you will hold sway over the Medes. Because of your dominion which you had, you will send to Rome hostages, even those who were in bondage to Asia. So also, though thinking as a queen, you will come under the judgment of your adversaries, on whose account you sent ransom. You will pay a bitter reckoning to your enemies in return for your crooked words. In the last time, one day the sea will be dry. The ships will then no longer sail to Italy. Great Asia then will be a water, bearing all cargo, and Crete a plain. Cyprus will have great affliction, and Paphos will bewail a terrible fate, so that even the great city of Salamis, suffering a great affliction, will notice it. Now there will again be barren dry land on the shore. A not inconsiderable swarm of locusts will destroy the land of Cyprus. Ill-fated men, you will weep when you look towards Tyre. Phoenicia, terrible wrath awaits you until you fall a bad fall, so that the Syrenes may truly weep. It will come to pass in the 5th generation, when the destruction of Egypt ceases, when the shameless kings intermingle. The clans of the Pamphilians will settle in Egypt and in Macedonia and in Asia, and among the Lycians there will be a bloody war, throwing the world into confusion in dust, which a king of Rome and the potentates of the West will stop. Whenever a wintry blast dips the snow, when a great river and the biggest lakes are frozen over, immediately a barbarian throng will march to the land of Asia and will destroy the race of the terrible Thracians, as if it were weak. Then desperate men, weakened by famine, will devour their parents, gulp them down as food. Wild beasts will devour the table from all dwellings. Even birds will devour all mortals, and bloody ocean will be filled with flesh and blood of the senseless from evil war. There will be such weakness on earth that it will be possible to know the number of men and count of women. A wretched generation will groan 10,000-fold at the end, when the sun is setting, so that it never rises again, remaining to be plunged in the waters of the ocean, for it saw the impious wickedness of many men. There will be moonless night around the great heaven itself. No small mist will cover the folds of the world about a second time, but then the light of God will lead the good men, as many as sang out the praise of God. Isis, thrice wretched goddess, you will remain by the streams of the Nile, alone, a speechless Maenad on the sands of the Acheron. No longer will memory of you remain throughout the whole earth. And you, Serapis, reposing on many unwrought stones, will lie a very great casualty in thrice wretched Egypt. But as many as brought the desire of Egypt to you will all bewail you bitterly, turning their attention to the imperishable God. Those who sang out your praises as a god will know that you are nothing. Then a man clad in linen, one of the priests, will say, Come, let us erect a sanctuary of the true God. Come, let us change the terrible custom we have received from our ancestors, on account of which they performed processions and rites to gods of stone and earthenware and were devoid of sense. Let us turn our souls singing out the praises of the imperishable God himself, the begetter who is eternal, the ruler of all, the true one, the king, the begetter who nourishes souls, the great eternal God. Then there will be a great holy temple in Egypt, and a people fashioned by God will bring sacrifices to it, and to them the imperishable God will grant to reside there. But when the Ethiopians leave the shameless tribes of the Tribali and are about to till the land of Egypt, they will launch on a course of wickedness, so that all the latter things will come to pass. For they will destroy the great temple of the land of Egypt. God will rain on them a terrible wrath down on earth, so as to destroy all the wicked and all the lawless. There will no longer be any sparing in that land, because they did not guard what God entrusted to them. I saw the threat of the burning sun among the stars, and the terrible wrath of the moon amongst lightning flashes. The stars travailed in battle. God bade them fight. For over against the sun long flames were in strife, and the two-horned rush of the moon was changed. Lucifer fought, mounted on the back of Leo. Capricorn smote the ankle of the young Taurus, and Taurus deprived Capricorn of his day of return. Orion removed Libra so that it remained no more. Virgo changed the destiny of Gemini in Aries. The Pleiad no longer appeared, and Draco rejected its belt. Pisces submerged themselves in the girdle of Leo. Cancer did not stand its ground, for it feared Orion. Scorpio got under the tail because of terrible Leo, and the dog star perished by the flame of the sun. The strength of the mighty day star burned up Aquarius. Heaven itself was roused until it shook the fighters. In anger it cast them headlong to the earth. Accordingly, stricken into the baths of the ocean, they quickly kindled the whole earth, but the sky remained starless. The Sibylline Oracles, Book 6. I speak from my heart of the great famous Son of the Immortal, to whom the Most High, his begetter, gave a throne to possess before he was born, since he was raised up the second time according to the flesh, when he had washed in the streams of the river Jordan, which moves with gleaming foot, sweeping the waves. He will escape the fire and be the first to see delightful God coming in the spirit on the white wings of a dove. A pure flower will bloom, fountains will burst forth. He will show ways to men, he will show heavenly paths, he will teach all with wise words. He will come to judgment and persuade a disobedient people, boasting praiseworthy descent from the heavenly Father. He will walk the waves, he will undo the sicknesses of men, he will raise the dead, he will repel many woes. From one wallet men will have surfeit of bread, when the house of David brings forth a shoot. In his hand are the whole world and earth and heaven and sea, and he will flash like lightning on the earth, as the two begotten from each other's sides once saw him when he first shone forth. It will come to pass, when the earth rejoices in the hope of a child, for you alone, land of Sodom, evil afflictions are in store. For with your hostile mind you did not perceive your God when he came before mortal eyes. But you crowned him with a crown from the thorn bush. And you mix terrible gall for insult and drink, that will cause great affliction for you. O wood, O most blessed, on which God has stretched out, earth will not contain you, but you will see heaven as home when your fiery eye, O God, flashes like lightning. O roads, you wretched one, for you first I weep. You are first of cities, but you will perish first. Widowed of men, completely failing to gain a livelihood. Delos, you will swim and be unstable on the water. Cyprus, one day the wave of the gleaming sea will destroy you. Sicily, the fire that flares beneath you will burn you up. And this I say, the terrible and strange water of God. A certain Noah came, a solitary fugitive from all men. Earth will swim, mountains will swim, even the sky will swim. All will be water, and all things will perish in waters. Winds will stop, and there will be a second age. O Phrygia, you will shine forth first from the surface of the water, but you, the same first to impiety, will reject God, pleasing to speechless idols, which will destroy you, wretched one, as many years pursue this cyclical course. The unfortunate Ethiopians, also suffering piteous woes, will be smitten with swords under the skin as they crouch in fear. Civil strife amongst themselves will destroy sleek Egypt, always concerned with corn blades, which the Nile saturates with 7 swimming streams. Thence, unexpectedly, men will drive out Apis, who is not a god to men. Alas, Laodicea, daring one, you will speak falsehood. You have never seen God. The wave of Lycus will dash over you. The great God himself, the begetter, will make many stars and will hang an axis through the middle of the sky and set up a great terror for men to behold on high, an immense pillar with great fire, from which drops will destroy the evil race of men who have done harm. For one day that time will come to pass when once for all men will beseech God, but will not stop fruitless troubles. But all will be fulfilled through the house of David, for God entrusted and gave a throne to him. The angels will sleep under his feet, those who cause fires to gleam, and those who pour forth rivers, those who protect cities, and those who send out storm winds. A difficult life will come upon many men, entering souls and changing hearts of men. But when a young shoot puts forth eyes from the root, which once distributed abundant nurture to all branches, these things will further be in time. But when others rule over the tribe of warlike Persians, then there will be terrible weddings of brides because of lawless tribes. For mother will have her own son also as husband. Sons will have intercourse with mother. Daughter, reclining on father, will sleep according to this savage custom. Later, a Roman Ares will shine out on them from many a lance. They will mix much earth with human blood. A prince of Italy will then flee from the might of the spear. They will leave on the ground a flower engraved with gold, which always bears an holy sign when it goes forth. It will come to pass when Ilias, all evil and ill-fated, piteously drinks deep, not marriage, but the tomb. And then brides will weep deeply because they did not take thought of God, but always made noise with cymbals and rattling sounds. Prophesy, Colophon, a great terrible fire hangs over you. Ill-wedded Thessaly, the earth will no longer see you, even as ashes, but you will sail alone, a fugitive from the mainland. Thus, O wretched one, you will be the mournful refuse of war, or one who falls to dogs and rivers and swords. O wretched Corinth, you will receive grievous war about yourself. Miserable one, and you will perish at each other's hands. Tyre, you alone will receive so great a fate, for you will excel in small-mindedness, bereft of pious men. Cole Syria, last possession of the Phoenician men, on whom the brine of Beirut lies belched up. Wretched one, you did not recognize your God, whom once Jordan washed in its streams, and the Spirit flew like a dove. He, before either earth or starry heaven, was sovereign word, with the Father and the Holy Spirit. He put on flesh, but quickly flew to his Father's home. Great heaven established 3 towers for him, in which the noble mothers of God now live. Hope and piety and desirable holiness they do not reject in gold or silver, but in reverential acts of men, sacrifices, and most righteous thoughts. You shall sacrifice to the immortal great noble God, not by melting a lump of incense in fire or striking a shaggy ram with a sacrificial knife, but with all who bear your blood, by taking a wild dove, praying and sending it off while gazing to heaven. You shall pour a libation of water on pure fire, crying out as follows: As the Father begot you, the Word, so I have dispatched a word which is swift reporter of words, sprinkling with holy waters your baptism, through which you were revealed out of fire. You shall not shut the door when some other stranger comes, begging you to ward off poverty and hunger, but take the head of this man, sprinkle it with water, and pray 3 times. Cry out to your God as follows: I do not desire wealth. I am poor. I have received a poor man. You, Father, provider, deign to listen to both. He will give to you when you pray. And thereafter a man led away. Do not afflict me. Sacred and righteous holiness of God, holy, indomitable, proved concerning the offspring. Father, check my wretched heart. I have looked to you the undefiled, whom no hands made. Sardinia, you who are powerful now will be changed to ashes. You will no longer be an island. When the 10th time comes, sailing on the waters, they will seek you who no longer exist. Kingfishers will wail a piteous lament over you. Rugged Magdonia, beacon of the sea, difficult of exit, you will boast for an age. You will perish through ages entirely with a hot wind. You will rage with many ills. Celtic land, upon your mountain beyond the Alps, which are difficult to cross. Deep sand will make a mound over you. Entirely you will no longer give tribute, corn or fodder. You will be desolate without people, forever frozen with icy crystals. You will make amends for the outrage, impious one, which you had not noticed. Sturdy-spirited Rome, after the Macedonian spear, you will flash like lightning to Olympus. But God will make you utterly unknown when you will seem in appearance to remain much better established. And then I will cry out to you as follows: You who once gleamed brightly will lift your voice as you perish. Further Rome, I will again utter further things to you. Now, you, wretched Syria, will I bewail piteously. Thebes of ill counsel and evil sound will come upon you with the voice of flutes. A trumpet will sound a bad sound for you. You will see the whole land perishing. Woe to you, wretched one! Woe, evil-spirited sea! You will all be devoured by fire, and you will destroy people with brine. For there will be as much fire raging on the earth as water, and it will flow and destroy the whole earth. It will burn up mountains, burn rivers, and empty springs. The world will be chaos when men perish. Then wretched men, burning badly, will look to heaven, void of stars, but overcome by fire. They will not be destroyed quickly, but being burnt in spirit by their perishing flesh for the years of ages. Forever they will know by dire tortures that it is not possible to deceive the law of God. The earth, under constraint, has perceived that which ever of the gods she dared to accept in falsehood on her altars was smoke, misty through the sky. But they will endure extreme toil, who, for gain, will prophesy base things, augmenting an evil time, who, putting on the shaggy hides of sheep, will falsely claim to be Hebrews, which is not their race. But speaking with words, making profit by woes, they will not change their life and will not persuade the righteous and those who propitiate God through the heart most faithfully. In the third lot of circling years of the first Ogdoad, another world is seen again. All will be night, long, unyielding, and then a terrible smell of brimstone will extend, announcing murders. When those men perish by night and famine, and then he will beget a pure mind of men and will set up your race as it was before you. No longer will anyone cut a deep furrow with a crooked plough. No oxen will plunge down the guiding iron. There will be no vine branches or ear of corn, but all at once will eat the dewy manna with white teeth. God will then be with them who will teach you, even as me, the sorrowful one. For what evils I formerly did knowingly, and I performed many other things badly through neglect. I have known innumerable beds, but no marriage concerned me. Utterly faithless, I imposed a savage oath on all. I shut out those in need, and going amongst those who go forth to a shady glen, I did not observe the oracle of God. Therefore fire has eaten and will devour me, for I myself will not live. But an evil time will destroy me, when men who pass by will fashion a tomb for me by the sea, and they will destroy me with stones. And when I was speaking to the Father, he communicated to me the dear Son. May you stone me, all of you, for thus will I live and fix my eyes on heaven. The Sibylline Oracles, Book 8. As the great wrath comes upon the disobedient world, I show forth the wrath of God to the last age, prophesying to all men, city by city. From the time when the tower fell and the tongues of men were divided into many dialects of mortals, first the Egyptian kingdom, then that of the Persians, Medes, Ethiopians, and Assyrian Babylon, then that of Macedonia, which boasted in great arrogance, then fifth, the famous lawless kingdom of the Italians, last of all, will show many evils to all men, and will expend the toils of the men to all the earth. It will lead untiring kings of nations to the west, and will legislate for all peoples and subdue all things. The mills of God grind fine flour, though late. And then fire will destroy everything and reduce to fine dust the heads of lofty mountains and of all flesh. The beginning of evils for all will be love of gain and folly, for there will be a desire for deceitful gold and silver. For there is nothing that mortals prefer to these, not the light of the sun, not heaven, not sea, nor the broad earth whence everything grows, nor God, who gives everything, begetter of all. Nor did they prefer faith and piety to these. It is the source of impiety and forerunner of disorder, deviser of wars, hostile troubler of peace, which alienates parents from their children and children from their parents. Even marriage will never be wholly honored apart from gold. Earth will have boundaries, and all the sea guards craftily divided amongst those who have gold. As if wishing to have the much nurturing earth forever, they will ravage the poor, so that they themselves may acquire additional land and subject them to imposture. If the huge earth did not have its throne far from the starry heaven, men would not have equal light, but it would be marketed for gold and would belong to the rich, and God would have prepared another world for beggars. One day, proud Rome, there will come upon you from above an equal heavenly affliction. And you will first bend the neck and be razed to the ground, and fire will consume you altogether. Laid low on your floors, and wealth will perish, and wolves and foxes will dwell in your foundations. Then you will be utterly desolate as if you had never been. Where then will be the Palladium? What sort of God will save you? One of gold, or stone, or bronze? Or where then will be your senatorial decrees? Where the race of Rhea, or Kronos, or Zeus, and of all those whom you revered? Lifeless demons, likelessness of dead corpses, whose tombs ill-fated Crete will have as a boast, worshipping senseless corpses with ritual enthronements. But when, luxurious one, you have had 15 kings who enslaved the world from east to west, there will be a grey-haired prince with the name of a nearby sea, inspecting the world with polluted foot, giving gifts. Having abundant gold, he will also gather more silver from his enemies and strip and undo them. He will participate in all the mysteries of magic shrines. He will display a child as God and undo all objects of reverence. From the beginning he will open up the mysteries of error to all. Then will be a woeful time, because the woeful himself will perish. One day the people will say, your great power, O city, will fall, knowing that the fated evil day is immediately at hand. And then fathers and infant children will mourn together regarding your most piteous fate. Mournful they will raise dirges by the banks of the Tiber. After him, 3 will rule, who have the last day of all, fulfilling the name of the heavenly God, whose power is both now and for all ages. 1, an old man, will control dominions far and wide, or a most piteous king, who will shut up and guard all the wealth of the world in his home, so that when the blazing matricidal exile returns from the ends of the earth, he will give these things to all and award great wealth to Asia. Then you will mourn, doffing the garment of leaders, with its broad purple border, and wearing a garment of mourning. O proud queen, offspring of Latin Rome, no longer will you have the fame of your pride, nor will you ever be lifted up, ill-fated one, but you will be laid low. For the glory of the eagle-bearing legions will also fall. Where then is your strength? What sort of land will be an ally which has been lawlessly enslaved by your vain thoughts? For then there will be confusion of all the land of mortals, when the universal ruler himself comes and judges on the tribunal the souls of the living and dead and the whole world. Neither will parents be friendly to children, nor children to parents, because of impiety and affliction beyond hope. Then you will have gnashing of teeth and scattering and capture, when the fall of city comes, and yawning gaps in the earth, when the purple dragon comes on the waves, pregnant with a host, and will nurture your children. When famine and civil war are at hand, then the end of the world and the last day is near, and the judgment of the immortal God for the approved elect. First, there will be implacable wrath of Romans, a bloodthirsty time, and wretched life will come. Woe to you, Italian land, great savage nation! You will not perceive whence you came, naked and unworthy to the light of the sun, so that you might go again naked to the same place and later come to judgment, because you judge unjustly. By gigantic hands alone in the whole world you will come from a height and dwell under the earth, in naphtha and asphalt and brimstone and much fire. And you will disappear and will be blazing dust forever. Everyone who looks will hear a mournful great bellowing from Hades, gnashing of teeth, as you strike your godless breast with your hands. Night is equal to all at once, to those who have wealth and to beggars. coming naked from the earth, going naked again to the earth. They cease from life, having completed their time. No one is slave there, no lord, no tyrant, no kings, no leaders who are very arrogant, no forensic rhetoricians, no ruler judging for money. They do not pour blood on altars in libations of sacrifices, no drum sounds, no cymbal, no flute of many holes, which has a sound that damages the heart, no pipe, which bears an imitation of that crooked serpent, no savage-sounding trumpet, herald of wars, none who are drunk in lawless revels or dances, no sound of the lyre, no evil-working device, no strife, no anger in its diverse kinds. Nor will there be a knife beside the dead, but the age will be common to all, key-bearer of the great enclosure of the tribunal of God. And with statutes of gold and silver and stone, be beautiful, so that you may come to a bitter day, to see your punishment first, Rome, and the gnashing of teeth. No longer will Syrian, Greek, or foreigner, or any other nation place their neck under your yoke of slavery. You will be utterly ravaged and destroyed for what you did. Groaning in panic, you will give until you have repaid all, and you will be a triumph spectacle to the world and a reproach of all. Then the sixth generation of Latin kings will complete its last life and abandon the scepters. Another king of the same race will reign, who will rule the whole earth and gain sway over dominions. He will rule by the counsels of the great God without contamination, his children and the race of his unshaken children. For thus it is prophesied in the cyclic course of time, whenever there will have been 15 kings of Egypt. Then, when comes the time of the phoenix of the fifth period, he will come to ravage the race of peoples, undistinguished tribes, the nation of the Hebrews. Then Ares will take Ares captive. He himself will destroy the overbearing threat of the Romans, for the empire of Rome, which then flourished, has perished, the ancient queen over the surrounding cities. No longer will the plain of luxuriant Rome be victorious when he comes from Asia, conquering with Ares. Having done all these things, he will come to the trampled town. You will fulfill thrice 348 years, when an evil, violent fate will come upon you, fulfilling your name. Alas for me, thrice wretched one! When will I see the day destructive indeed to you, Rome, and especially to all Latins? Celebrate, if you wish, the man of secret birth, riding a Trojan chariot from the land of Asia, with the spirit of fire. But when he cuts through the isthmus, glancing about, going against everyone, having crossed the sea, then dark blood will pursue the great beast. The hound pursued the lion that was destroying the herdsmen, and they will take away dominion, and he will pass over to Hades. A final but greatest evil will come upon the Rhodians, and for the Thebians, evil captivity awaits thereafter. Egypt will be destroyed by the wickedness of its rulers, also, like the men who afterwards fled dire destruction. Thrice happy was the man, and 4 times blessed. Rome will be a street, and Delos inconspicuous, and Samos sand. And then later also evil will come upon the Persians in return for overbearing pride. All arrogance will be destroyed. Then a holy prince will gain control of the scepters of the whole world for all ages. He who raised the dead. The Most High will lead 3 then in piteous fate at Rome, and all men will perish in their own dwellings. But they will not be persuaded, which would be much better. But whenever there rises upon all the evil day of famine and pestilence, hard to bear, and tumult, and then again the former wretched Lord will assemble the council and deliberate how he will destroy. The withered will bloom, appearing together with leaves. The floor of heaven will rain. on the hard rock, shower and flame and many breezes on the earth, and an abundance of poisonous seeds throughout the whole earth. But they will act again with shameless spirit, not fearing the wrath of God or men, abandoning modesty, desiring shamelessness, tyrants in fickleness and violent sinners, liars, lovers of faithlessness, evildoers, truthful in nothing, breakers of faith, ingenious at pouring out slander. They will not have surfeit of wealth, but shamelessly they will collect more. Under the sway of tyrants they will perish. All the stars will fall directly into the sea, all in turn, and men will call a shining comet the star, a sign of much impending toil, war, and slaughter. May I not be alive when the abominable woman reigns, but rather then, when heavenly grace comes to rule, and whenever the sacred child, the destroyer of all, destroys the malignant abyss with bonds, opening it up, suddenly a wooden house will cover men round about. But when the 10th generation is within the house of Hades, thereafter the power of the female will be great. God himself will increase many evils for her when she is crowned and receives a royal honor. The entire year will be an age turned upside down. The sun, seeing dimly, shines at night. Stars will leave the vault of heaven. A raging storm with many a hurricane will lay the earth desolate. There will be a resurrection of the dead and most swift racing of the lame, and the deaf will hear, and blind will see, and those who cannot speak will speak, and life and wealth will be common to all. The earth will equally belong to all, not divided by walls or fences, and will then bear more abundant fruits. It will give fountains of sweet wine and white milk and honey, and judgment of the immortal God. But when God changes the times, making winter summer, then all the oracles are fulfilled. But when the world perished, the earth will sweat when there will be a sign of judgment. A king will come from heaven, who is to judge all flesh, and the whole world will forever when he comes. Both faithful and faithless men will see God, the Most High, with the holy ones at the end of time. He will judge the souls of flesh-bearing men on the tribunal when the whole world becomes a barren land and thorns. Men will throw away idols and all wealth. Fire will burn up land, heaven, and sea, pursuing the hunt, and will break the gate of the confines of Hades. Then all the flesh of the dead, of the holy ones, will come to the free light. The fire will torture the lawless forever. Whatever one did secretly, he will then say everything. For God will open dark breasts with lights. A lament will rise from all, a gnashing of teeth. The light of the sun will be eclipsed, and the troops of stars. He will roll up heaven. The light of the moon will perish. He will elevate ravines and destroy the heights of the hill. No longer will mournful height appear amongst men. Mountains will be equal to plains, and all the sea will no longer bear voyage. For earth will then be parched with its springs. Bubbling rivers will fail. A trumpet from heaven will issue a most mournful sound, wailing for the defilement of limbs and the woes of the world. The gaping earth will then show the abyss of the netherworld. All will come to the tribunal of God the King. A river of fire and brimstone will flow from heaven. There will then be a sign for all men, a most clear seal. The wood among the faithful, the desired horn, the life of pious men, but the scandal of the world, illuminating the elect with waters in 12 streams. An iron shepherd's rod will prevail, and this is our God, now proclaimed in acrostics, the King, the immortal Savior, who suffered for us. Moses prefigured him, stretching out his holy arms, conquering Amalek by faith, so that the people might know that he is elect and precious with God his Father, the staff of David and the stone he promised. The one who has believed in him will have eternal life, for he will come to creation not in glory, but as a man, pitiable, without honor or form, so that he might give hope to the pitiable. He will give form to perishable flesh and heavenly faith to the faithless. And he will fashion the original man, formed by the holy hands of God, whom the snake craftily caused to err, to go to the fate of death and receive knowledge of good and evil, so as to abandon God and serve mortal customs. For the universal ruler took him into his council, first of all from the beginning, and said, "Let us both, child, make mortal tribes, copying our likeness. Now I with my hands, and then you with a word, will tend our form, so that we may produce a common construct. Mindful therefore of this resolution, he will come to a creation bearing a corresponding copy to the Holy Virgin, illuminating by water at the same time through the hands of the elders, doing all with the word, healing every disease. He will stop the winds with the word. He will calm the raging sea by walking on it with feet of peace and with faith. From 5 loaves and a fish of the sea, he will satisfy 5,000 men in the desert, and taking all the leftover fragments, he will fill 12 baskets for the hope of the peoples. He will call on the souls of the blessed. He will love the wretched, who will do good in return for evil when they are mocked, beaten, and whipped, desiring poverty. Perceiving everything and seeing everything, and listening to everything, he will observe the heart, lay it bare for trial. He himself is the hearing and mind and sight and reason of all, who creates forms, to whom everything is subject, who saves the dead and cures every disease. And later he will come into the hands of lawless and faithful men, and they will give blows to God with unholy hands, and poisonous spittings with polluted mouths. Then he will stretch out his back and give it to the whips, for he will hand over the world to the Holy Virgin. Beaten, he will be silent, lest anyone recognize who he is, whose son and whence he came, so that he may speak to the dead. And he will wear the crown of thorns, for made of thorns the crown of chosen men is an eternal delight. They will stab his sides with a reed on account of their law, for by winds shaken by another wind the inclinations of the soul are turned from wrath and change. But when all these things of which I have spoken are fulfilled, then from him every law will be dissolved, from which from the beginning was given in teachings to men on account of a disobedient people. He will stretch out his hands and measure the entire world. They gave him gall for food and vinegar to drink. They will show forth this table of inhospitality. The veil of the temple will be rent, and in midday there will be dark, monstrous night for 3 hours. For no longer with secret law and temple must one serve the phantoms of the world. That which has been hidden was again made manifest when the eternal sovereign came down to earth. He will come to Hades, announcing hope for all the holy ones, the end of the ages, the last day, and he will complete the fate of death when he has slept the 3rd day. And then, returning from the dead, he will come to the light, first of the resurrection, showing a beginning to the elect, having washed off their former vices with the waters of an immortal spring, so that born from above they may no longer serve the lawless customs of the world. First then, the Lord was seen clearly by his own, incarnate as he was before, and he will show in hands and feet 4 marks fixed in his own limbs, east and west, south and north. For so many kingdoms of the world will accomplish the unlawful, blameworthy actions as our archetype. Rejoice, O holy daughter of Zion, who have suffered much. Your king himself comes in, mounted on a foal, appearing gentle to all, so that he may lift your yoke of slavery, hard to bear, which lies on your neck, and undo the godless ordinances and constraining bonds. Know that he is your God, and he is Son of God. Honor him and keep him in your heart, and love him from your soul, and bear his name. set aside the former customs and wash from his blood. For he is not propitiated by your laments or prayers, since he is imperishable. He pays no attention to perishable sacrifices, except when intelligent mouths bring forth a hymn. Know who he is, and then you will see the begetter. Then in time all the elements of the world will be bereft. Air, land, sea, light of blazing fire, and heavenly dome and night, and all days will rush together into one, into an utterly desolate form. For all the stars of luminaries will fall from heaven, and no longer will well-winged birds fly on the air, nor will there be a walking on the earth. For all wild beasts will perish. There will be no voices of men, or beasts, or birds. The world in disorder will hear no useful sound. The deep sea will resound with a great sound of threat. All the swimming creatures of the sea will die, trembling. No longer will a ship bearing cargo sail on the waves. The earth, being bloodied by wars, will bellow. All the souls of men will gnash their teeth with the wailings and panic of the lawless souls, dissolving with thirst and famine and pestilence and murders, and they will call death fair, and it will evade them. For no longer will death give rest to those, or night. Often will they make request to God who rules on high in vain, and then he will manifestly turn away his face from them, for he gave 7 days of ages for repentance to erring men through the intercession of the Holy Virgin. God himself showed me all these things in my mind, and he will fulfill all the things which are spoken through my mouth. I know the number of sand and the measures of the sea. I know the recesses of the earth and murky Tartarus. I know the numbers of stars and trees, and how many tribes of four-footed animals, swimming creatures, and birds that fly, and men that are, and that will be, and the dead. For I myself fashioned the forms and minds of men, and I gave right reason, and I taught understanding. I, who formed the eyes and the ears, seeing and hearing, and knowing every thought, and sharing the knowledge of all. Being within, I am silent, and later I myself will test and bring about whatever any one of mortals did in secret, coming also to the tribunal of God, and telling to mortals, I understand the dumb, and I hear one who does not speak. And how much is the total height from earth to heaven? Beginning and end I know. I who created heaven and earth, for all things are from him. He knows what is from the beginning to the end. For I alone am God, there is no other God. They decree an image, fashioned of wood, to be mine, and shaping it with their hands, a speechless idol, they honor it with prayers and unholy worshipping. Abandoning the Creator, they worship licentiousness, and all have gifts from me, but give them to useless things, and they think all these things useful, like my honors, making burnt offerings at meals, as to their own dead. For they burn flesh, and sacrificing bones full of marrow on altars, they pour blood to demons, and light lamps for me, the giver of light. Mortals pour libations of wine as if to a thirsty God, getting drunk to no purpose for useless idols. I have no need of your sacrifice or libation, or polluted burnt offerings, or most hated blood. For they will do these things to the memory of kings and tyrants, for dead demons, as if they were heavenly beings, performing a godless and destructive worship. Godless ones also call their images gods, abandoning the Creator, thinking to have all hope and life from them, trusting in dumb and speechless things with evil result. They are ignorant of good end. I myself proposed 2 ways of life and death, and proposed to the judgment to choose good life. But they turned eagerly to death and eternal fire. Man is my image, having right reason, Set for him, you, a pure and unbloodied table, having filled it with good things, and give the bread to the hungry, and drink to the thirsty, and clothes to the naked body, supplying them from your own labors with holy hands. Accept the afflicted, stand by the suffering, and provide for me, the living one, a living sacrifice. Sowing now on water, so that I also may one day give you immortal fruits, and you will have eternal light, and unfading life, when I test all by fire. For I will melt all things and separate them into clean air. I will roll up heaven, open the recesses of the earth, and then I will raise the dead, having undone fate and the sting of death. And later I will come to judgment, judging the life of pious and impious men. I will set ram by ram, and shepherd by shepherd, and calf by calf, near each other for trial. Whoever are convicted in the trial because they were exalted, and stopped the mouths of all those that they in envy could equally subject those who act in holy manner, ordering them to be silent, pressing on for gain, will all depart then as not approved by me. No longer will you say in sorrow, "It will be tomorrow," or "It happened yesterday." No worry about many days. No spring, no winter, no summer, no autumn, no sunset, no sunrise. For I will make a long day forever. Light will be desired. Self-begotten, undefiled, everlasting, eternal, master of heaven in might, measuring the fiery breath. He holds the scepter of thunder with a rough firebrand, and he soothes the peals of deep-sounding thunderbolts. Storming the earth, he restrains the rushing noises, and he dulls the fiery whips of lightning. He contains the unspeakable pourings of showers and storms of icy hail, missiles of clouds and attacks of winter. For they bear witness to each thing that you yourself decide to do and approve in your mind. With your Son before all creation, you shared deliberations with equal breasts, fashioner of men and creator of life. Him you addressed with the first sweet voice from your mouth. Look, let us make a man, like in all respects to our form, and let us give him the life-supporting breath to have. Though he is mortal in all things of the world will serve him. And when he is fashioned of clay, we will subject all things to him. These things you said to the Word, and all was done in your heart. All the elements together obeyed your command, and eternal creation was arranged for a mortal creature. Heaven, fire, earth, land, sea, and sea current, sun, moon, chorus of stars, mountains, night, day, sleep, waking, spirit and motion, soul and intellect, skill and voice and strength, and wild tribes of living creatures, those of swimming creatures and birds, walking creatures and amphibians and serpents and things of double nature, for all things were arranged spontaneously under your leadership. In the last times he changed the earth, and coming late as a new light, he rose from the womb of the Virgin Mary. Coming from heaven, he put on a mortal form. First, then Gabriel was revealed in his strong and holy person. Second, the archangel who addressed the maiden in speech. Receive God, Virgin, in your immaculate bosom. And thus speaking, he breathed in the grace of God, even to one who was always a maiden. Fear, and at the same time, wonder seized her as she listened. She stood trembling, her mind fluttered, while her heart was shaken by the unfamiliar things she heard. But again she rejoiced, and her heart was healed by the voice. The maiden laughed and reddened her cheek, rejoicing with joy and enchanted in heart with awe. Courage also came over her. A word flew to her womb. In time it was made flesh and came to life in the womb, and was fashioned in mortal form and became a boy by virgin birth. For this is the great wonder to men, but nothing is a great wonder for God the Father and God the Son. The joyful earth fluttered to the child at its birth. The heavenly throne laughed, and the world rejoiced. A wondrous new shining star was venerated by Magi. The newborn child was revealed in a manger to those who obey God. Cowherds and goatherds and shepherds of sheep, and Bethlehem was said to be the divinely named homeland of the Word. Be humble in heart. Hate bitter power. And above all, love your neighbor as yourself, and love God from the soul and serve him. And therefore we are also of the holy heavenly race of Christ, and are called brethren. Having a remembrance of joy in worship, we walk the paths of piety and truth. We are never allowed to approach the sanctuaries of temples, nor to pour libations to statues, nor to honor them with prayers, nor with delightful scents of flowers, nor with gleams of lamps, nor even to embellish them with offerings, nor with the breaths of incense sending up a flame on altars, nor with libations from the sacrifice of bulls, rejoicing in gore, to send blood from the slaughter of sheep as a propitiatory offering for earthly penalty, nor to defile the light of the sky with smoke from burnt offerings and polluted breezes from a fire that burns flesh, but rejoicing with holy minds and glad spirit, abundant love, and hands that bring good gifts, with gracious psalms and songs appropriate to God. We are bidden to sing your praises as imperishable and pure from all deceit. God, wise begetter of all. The Sibylline Oracles, Book 11. World of widespread men, long walls, great cities, and innumerable nations of east, west, south, and north, divided in many diverse languages and kingdoms, to you I'm about to speak the most disastrous tidings. For from the time when the flood came upon the men of old, and destroyed that generation with many waters, the universal ruler himself furnished another race of restless men, who, in opposition to heaven, built a tower to an awful height. The tongues of all were loosed, but on them came the wrath of the Most High God, hurled down, and the wondrous tower fell, for they aroused evil strife against each other. Then also was the 10th generation of articulate men. From the time when these things happened, the entire earth was divided between diverse men and all sorts of dialects, of which I will tell the numbers and name them in acrostics, according to the first initial, and I will reveal the name. First, Egypt will receive royal dominion, outstanding and just. Then many counseling men will govern in her. But then a terrible man will rule, a very mighty skirmisher. His name will have the letter of the acrostic, swords will he extend against pious men. While he wields power, this great sign will be in the land of Egypt. In great glory she will then feed with corn people who are perishing by famine. The same man, prisoner and judge, will nurture the east, and the race of Assyrian men know his name, of the measure of the 10th number. But when the affliction of 10 plagues comes upon Egypt from shining heaven, then I will again proclaim these things to you. Woe to you, Memphis! Woe, great kingdom! The Red Sea will destroy a great multitude of you. And then when the people of 12 tribes, bidden by the Immortal, leave the fruitful plain of destruction, and God himself, the Prince, gives a law to men, then a great, great-spirited king will rule the Hebrews, one who has a name from sandy Egypt, a man falsely thought to have Thebes as his homeland. But a terrible snake will love Memphis and will devour many things in wars. In the 12th decade of revolving kingship, in the 17th centuries of years, when 5 more are left, then will be the empire of Persia. Then there will be darkness upon the Jews, and they will not escape famine and pestilence, which is hard to bear on that day. But when a Persian rules and leaves the scepter to the sons of his grandson, as the years pursue the cyclic course, for only 5 times 400 and 100 in addition to these you will complete 100 enneads and make amends for all. Then Persia, you will be given as a servant to the Medes, perishing with affliction through mighty war. Immediately disaster will come upon the Persians and the Assyrians, all Egypt, Libyans and Ethiopians, Carians and Pamphylians, and all other mortals. Then he will give the royal empire to the descendants, who again will lay waste races for many spoils, ravaging the entire earth without sympathy. Mournful, the Persians will wail dirges by the Tigris. Egypt will moisten much earth with tears. Then a very rich Indian will cause many evils for you, Median land, until you have made amends for all which you have formerly done with shameless spirit. Woe to you, Median nation! Thereafter you will serve Ethiopian men beyond the land of Merios. You will complete 100 years from the beginning, wretched one, adding 7 to these, and you will place your neck under the yoke. Then thereafter there will arise a dark-skinned, grey-haired, great-spirited Indian prince, who will cause many evils to the east through mighty war, and he will damage you, or rather destroy you beyond all. But when he reigns 20 years and 10 plus 7 and 10, then every nation of the royal empire will rage and display freedom, abandoning slave blood for 3 single years. But he will come again, and every nation of men will place its neck under the yoke for the mighty one again, as it was formerly subject to the king, and it will willingly be subordinate. There will be great peace throughout the whole world. Then a great man will be king over the Assyrians. He will rule and persuade everyone to speak according to his mind what God disposed in laws. Then all the kings will fear this man. They who plume themselves with spears, fearful and speechless, exceedingly mighty, lovely to behold, will serve this man through the plans of the great God. For he will persuade everything by speech and subdue everything, and he will mightily build the temple of the great God and the lovely altar, and he will cast down idols. He will gather tribes in the generation of the fathers and infant children into one place as settlers, and build a wall around them. He will have a name of the number 200, and will show the signs of initial of 18. But whenever he prevails, as decades pursue their cyclical course, for 2 plus 5, coming to the end of his time, there will be as many kings as tribes of men, as clans, as cities, and as islands, lands of the blessed and fields of shining fruit. But there will be one great king over them, a leader of many. Many great spirited kings will yield to him. They will give to him and his sons and prosperous grandsons portions of the kingdom for empire until 8 decades of decades and 6 single years. In addition to these, he will rule even those who are his opponents to the end. But when a strong wild beast comes with mighty ardors, then for you also, royal land, will wrath spring up. Woe to you, Persian land! How many effusions you will receive of human blood when that man of mighty spirit comes to you. Then again I will proclaim these things to you. But when Italy produces a great marvel for men, a murmuring of infants by an unpolluted spring in a shady cave, children of a flock-devouring beast, who, when they have become men, will cast down headlong many who have shameless spirit on 7 strong hills. Both number 100, their names will show them a great sign of things to come. They will build strong walls on 7 hills, and will set up grievous war about them. Then there will be an insurrection of men springing up about you, great land of beautiful corn, great spirited Egypt. But I will again proclaim these things, and in addition you will receive a great affliction in your homes, and again you will have an insurrection of your own men. Now you, wretched Phrygia, do I bewail piteously. For on you will come captivity from Greece, which subdues horses, and terrible war through mighty battles. Ilium, I pity you, for a fury from Sparta will come to your dwelling, mingled with a destructive star. It will especially cause your toils, labours, groanings, and wailings when skilled men begin battle. The heroes of the Greeks, by far the best of those who love war. One of these, a mighty warrior, will be king. For the sake of his brother, he will perform most evil deeds. They will destroy the famous walls of Troy, of the Phrygians, when the son of Kronos, for twice 5 revolving years, fulfills the murderous deeds of war. Suddenly, a wooden deceit will cover men around, and the one of deep grief will receive it on her knees, not perceiving that it is an ambush pregnant with Greeks. Alas, how many Hades will receive in one night! How much spoil will it carry off from the old man of many tears! But there will be ageless glory in future generations. A great man from Zeus, a king, will have the name of the first letter. He, when he has returned home, will then fall at the hand of a deceitful woman. A famous child of heroes from the race and blood of Astharchus will rule. A mighty and brave man. He will come from Troy when it has been destroyed by a great fire, fleeing from his fatherland on account of the turmoil of Ares, carrying on his shoulders his elderly father, holding his only son by the hand. He will perform a pious deed, and glancing around, he who split the onslaught of the fire of blazing Troy, and pressing on through the throng. In fear he will cross the land and frightful sea. He will have a name of 3 syllables. For the first letter is not insignificant, but reveals the supreme man. Then he will set up the mighty city of the Latins in the 15th year on the depths of brine. Perishing on the waters, he will meet the end of death. But even when he dies, the nation of men will not forget him. For the race of this man will later rule over all, as far as the rivers Euphrates and Tigris, in the midst of the land of the Assyrians, where the Parthians tarried. It will come to pass in future generations when all these things happen. There will be again a certain elderly man, a bard, whom all call the wisest among men, but whose noble mind the whole world will be educated. For he will write the chief points with power and intelligence, and at various times he will write clearly very wondrous things, having mastered my words and meters and phrases, for he will be the very first to unfold my books. Afterward, he will also conceal them and no longer show them to men until the goal of wretched death, the end of life. But whenever these things are accomplished of which I spoke, the Greeks will again fight each other. Assyrians and Arabs, and further quivering-bearing Medes, Persians and Sicilians and Lydians will rise up, Thracians and Bithynians, and those who inhabit the land of beautiful corn by the streams of the Nile. Imperishable God will cause tumult amongst them at once. But an Assyrian man, a bastard Ethiopian, will very terribly come suddenly with the spirit of a wild beast, and he will cut through the entire isthmus, glancing about, going against everyone, and will sail across the sea. Then very many things will happen to you, faithless Greece. Woe to you, wretched Greece! How many lamentations you must make! For 87 revolving years you will be the mournful refuse of frightful war of all tribes. Then again the affliction of the Macedonians will come upon Greece, and it will destroy all Thrace and the turmoil of Ares, in islands and mainlands and amongst the Triballi, who love war. He will be amongst the foremost fighters, and will have his name an initial which shows the number 10 times. He will have a swift fate in empire, but he will leave behind a very great kingdom throughout the boundless earth. He himself will fall at the hand of a bad counselor, a spear-bearer, having lived as a leader with fair wind as no one else. Thereafter, the great spirited son of this man will rule of the first letter. There will be a detailed account of his race. Although this man was not born of Zeus or Ammon, all will nevertheless declare him to be, and will depict him as a bastard of the son of Kronos. He will lay waste the cities of many articulate men, but the greatest wound will spring up for Europe. This man will also afflict the city of Babylon with pestilence, and every land on which the sun looks in the east. He alone will sail the world. Woe to you, Babylon! You will be in servitude at triumphal processions, you who were called mistress. Ares will come to Asia. He will truly come, and will kill many of your children. Then you will send out your royal man, whose name is of the number 4, fighter with the spear, and terrible arrow shooter with mighty warriors. Then indeed famine and war will seize the midst of the Cilicians and Assyrians. But great-spirited kings will drape themselves in terrible conflict of spirit-destroying strife. But you flee the former king and abandon him. Do not wish to remain, and do not be ashamed to be cowardly, for a terrible lion will come upon you, a carnivorous beast, wild, stranger to justice, wearing a cloak about his shoulders. Flee the man who is like a thunderbolt. An evil yoke will come to Asia, and the whole earth will drink inundating murder. But whenever Pelion, Ares, will establish the great city of Egypt, giver of wealth, and name it for himself, betrayed deceitfully by his companions, he will undergo fate and death. For when he leaves the Indians and goes to Babylon, foreign murder will destroy him about the tables. Thereafter, others will rule each individual tribe. Kings who are devourers of the people and overbearing and faithless for a few years, then a great-spirited leader who will glean all Europe bare. From the time when the whole earth drinks the blood of all tribes, but he will leave life, having undone it by his own fate. There will be other kings, twice 4 men from his race, all of whom have the same name. Then Egypt will be a ruling bride, and the great city of the Macedonian prince, revered Alexandria, famous nurse of cities, glittering with beauty, will alone be metropolis. Then let Memphis blame its rulers. There will be deep peace throughout the whole world, and the earth of dark soil will then give more abundant fruits. And then evil will come upon the Jews, and they will not escape famine and pestilence on that day, which is hard to bear. But the ambrosial earth, dark-soiled with its beautiful corn, newly adorned, will receive many dying men. But 8 kings of marshy Egypt will complete numbers of years 330 plus 200. But their race will be destroyed. Not all of them, but a root will grow out. A female, destructive of mortals, betrayer of her own kingdom. But thereafter they will perform evil deeds amongst themselves in wickedness, and one will destroy another. A royal son will cut down a warrior father, and he himself will fail at the hands of his son. But before that he will sprout another plant. A root will shoot up thereafter spontaneously. From it there will be a race that grows on the side. For there will be a queen of the land by the streams of the Nile, which advances to the sea with a 7-fold mouth, and she will have a much-loved name of the number 20. She will make innumerable requests and collect all wealth of gold and silver. There will indeed be treachery against her from her own men. Then again, blessed land, you will have wars and battles and slaughters of men. But when many rule luxuriant Rome, in no respect chosen from the blessed, but tyrants, leaders of thousands and myriads, supervisors of lawful assemblies, and most great Caesars will rule in succession all the days. Last of these, of the number 10, Caesar will rule last, who will be struck in dread war by hostile men and stretch out his limbs on the ground. The children of Rome will carry him in their own hands and bury him piously and pour a mound on him, sharing favor to his memory because of his friendship. But when the end of the time of the age is at hand, fulfilling twice 300 and twice 10 from the time when your founders, the son of the beast, was leader, no longer will a dictator be a limited ruler, but a prince will be a king, a godlike man. Know then, Egypt, that a king is coming against you. He will truly come, a terrible Ares with gleaming helmet. Then for you, widow, there will be thereafter be captivity, for there will be wars which cause evils terrible and raging in force around the walls of the land. In wars you yourself, suffering mournfully, will flee, wretched one, over the newly slain. Later you will come to bed with the terrible one himself. The conclusion is the joining marriage. Woe to you, ill-wed maidens! You will give the royal rule to a Roman king and will make amends for all you formerly did in wars of men. You will give your whole land as a dowry to a powerful man, as far as India, Libya, and dark-skinned men. You will no longer be a widow, but you will live with a lion, a man-eating, terrible warrior of the war cry. And then, wretched one, you will be inconspicuous to all among men, for you will depart with shameless spirit, a tomb like a circular mound, well wrought. Fitted with pinnacles will receive you alive within it, in a snare, cleverly made. A great people will mourn you, and a king will raise a terrible, piteous lament for you. Then also Egypt of many labors will be a servant, which for many years brought spoils from the Indians. She will disgracefully be enslaved and will mingle tears in the river, the fruit-bearing Nile, because when she has acquired wealth and abundance of all goods, nurse of the cities, she will nourish the race of the devourer of the flocks, of terrible men. Alas, to how many wild beasts will you be servant and booty, prosperous Egypt, lawgiver to peoples? You who formerly also rejoiced in great kings will be slave to peoples, wretched ones, on account of that people which formerly, when it was living piously, you brought to great affliction, of labors and lamentations, and you placed on its neck the yoke of a plough, and you moistened the fields with tears of mortals. Therefore God himself, the imperishable Prince, who lives in the sky, will utterly destroy you and impel you to lamentation, and you will make amends for what you formerly did lawlessly. At last you will realize that the anger of God has come upon you. But I will go to Pytho and well-built Panopea, and there all will pronounce me a true seer, chanter of oracles, though some will call me a messenger with a frenzied spirit. But when he approaches the books, let him not shrink from them. He will know both all that is to be and that was before. From our words, then no longer will anyone call the divinely possessed seer an oracle monger of necessity. But Prince, now stop my very lovely speech, thrust away the frenzy and the true inspired voice and the terrible madness, but grant a pleasant refrain.